Okay, it is 4 o'clock on November 10th. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'll go through roll call of planning commission members present. Joey Edwards. Steve Stevens.
Here.
Jason Rufo. David Yurich.
Here.
Ryan Hill. Okay, and county commissioners, Commissioner Tharp. Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Bullock. I see him there.
Here, I'm here.
Great, thank you. We have a change to the agenda. We're gonna switch the files around, so we will be entertaining file 24-03 and then file 25-34. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay. Any updates from staff for tonight's meeting?
No, nothing substantial. You should be receiving your invites. We have some more action planning for my community project for next week. And so you should be getting those invites on the calendar. And I think that's all we have for tonight.
Great, we're gonna move into our new business then, which is file 24-03, the Box Creek gravel.
Let's approve the minutes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we do. Well, and I think we have 2 minutes. There's minutes 10:27. And I think there were the ones from, or maybe it was just those. Oh no, they were just in there twice, you're right.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 27th?
I move to approve the minutes from October 27th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, great. Now we'll move into file 24-03, which is the Box Creek gravel mining conditional use permit. Let me make sure I read the right one here. I hereby open the hearing for the case file 24-03 that was continued from April 28th, 2025, when testimony was heard from staff, the applicant, and members of the public. The evidentiary portion of the public hearing was closed. The Planning Commission deliberated after the Board of County Commissioners left the chambers. The Planning Commission continued the public hearing to May 28th in order for the applicant and staff to consider solutions for the major concerns raised during the public hearing. The two major areas of concern were noise generated by the new operations and safety concerns at the intersection of US 24 and County Road 10. On May 28th, the Planning Commission continued the hearing at the applicant and staff's request to July 28th, subsequently to August 11th and to September 8th, again on October 20th, and finally to today, November 10th. The reasons for the continuations were to resolve these two major areas of concern and to resolve public notice errors in the process. This statement I am reading shall be incorporated into and made part of the record on these proceedings. The Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners have jurisdiction to reopen the evidentiary portion of the joint public hearing on the conditional use permit application under section 3.1.10 of the Lake County Land Development Code. The purpose of reopening the evidential portion of the hearing is to hear new information pertaining to the two major concerns that prompted the continuing of the hearing. In reopening the evidentiary portion of the hearing, the Commission will allow testimony that pertains to the two major areas of concern. Then the Commission will close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and deliberate considering all of the testimony presented, starting on April 28th and continuing through this evening. Then it will make its decision by addressing the approval criteria as it is set forth in section 3.6.1.f of the Lake County Land Development Code. The procedure to be followed in this hearing will be: 1, members of the Commission and the Board will disclose if they've had any ex parte communications. 2, the county staff will make an initial presentation on new information that pertains to the two major concerns. 3, the applicant may then make their presentation on new information that pertains to the two major concerns. 4, after that, any other persons either supporting or opposing the application may present evidence on the new information that pertains to the two major areas of concern. 5, supporting and opposing witnesses may be questioned by the Commission and the Board. Once questioning is concluded, no further questioning is permitted unless granted by chair. The applicant may then present any rebuttal evidence. The parties and witnesses are asked not to submit evidence other than the two major concerns and to not submit redundant, irrelevant, or cumulative evidence. If someone has already made the point that you wish to make, please simply say so. The chair will also require that all comments be made to the Planning Commission and the Board, and that there be no dialogue between the applicant and members of the audience. At the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of the hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, and the Commission will discuss and weigh the evidence. The Board of County Commissioners will then retire from the meeting, and the chair of the Planning Commission will entertain a motion on the application. The motion may take the form of one of the following recommendations. 1, approve the application with no conditions. 2, approve the application with recommended conditions. 3, approve the application with newly identified conditions, or 4, deny the application. The planning director shall make a record of any substantial discussion on the motion and then include that in the record with the recommendation of the commission. The commission's recommendation will be in the form of a statement of motion. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the commission or to the form or substance of these proceedings?
Kind of clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So the two major points exclude the increased truck traffic on Harrison. So does that imply that the county commissioners don't feel that that's an issue?
No, there's no implications as to which way, well, first of all, this will be the planning commission's then making a recommendation to the county commissioners, but there's no assumption as to where the planning commission sits at this time. They have those understandings, and that was a pretty clear understanding and concern that was brought forward, as were many other things. But the couple of things that were outstanding that was not clear and needed further clarification were these other two items. Then we will take everything together and make a decision based on those things. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, I will now ask each planning commission member and then each county commissioner if you've had any ex parte communications to disclose, and if so, please disclose them now. Steve Stevens,
None.
David Church,
None?
Heather Lind, none, other than I will say, I'm sure most people have seen that there's comments on Facebook. I don't engage and I don't read into them much, but they exist. Commissioner Lee,
None.
Commissioner Bullock.
None.
Okay, great. And at this time, for those of you on Zoom, if you're mainly someone with CMKSLK, if you can write your names first and last as your Zoom or chat those in, that would be helpful for public record, please. And I will turn it over to staff for catch us up on the presentation.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you everybody for being here and for your patience and the time it's taken to get us to this point. If you could open the presentation, mine just briefly. We're gonna reorder what I was thinking, we'll go to the first slide. We have a traffic consultant who is gonna present. He did the safety analysis for this application, and so he is here for a short period of time. And so I wanted to have him go pretty quickly, but my second slide talks a little bit, kind of reiterates what Heather just said a bit on you know, how we got here, and I think that was pretty clear, but what's gonna be, you know, this is a quasi judicial process, and so we have to follow certain rules as we go through this, and that's a piece of why it got continued, because of the two issues, the noise and the traffic at that intersection, and so that's why the evidence that we're gonna be presenting and that you can speak to has to do with those two issues. We had a staff report on April 28th. There's a lot of documentation, as some of you have seen, on this application from April 28th to today. And all of that is what the planning commission and the board will consider after we close the public hearing. So there'll be more conversation for them after we get to that point. But at this point, we're gonna be talking about those two new areas. And the other thing I wanted to make sure everybody understood is that this application is for the gravel mining. It isn't for the gold mining. The gold mining is a CUP that was approved in 2018. That's what they operate under. And so we're not talking, and this is tricky, I realize all these things are tricky, but we're not talking about the gold mining, we're talking about the proposal to do the gravel operations. So let's go to the next slide very quickly. I think everybody is pretty educated on this. We could go to the next slide. Yeah, but again, this is an application for the processing of gravel or aggregate materials as a byproduct of the gold mining. So it's about the crushing, screening, washing of those construction materials, and then the exporting of that, the hauling of it off-site, as a saleable product. That's what this is for. They're permitted for approximately 300,000 tons that could leave the site annually. They're using County Road 24, which is where when they leave their site. That's the first road, which connects to County Road 10, and then onto US 24. So we're gonna hear a lot about that intersection as the afternoon goes on. The mining currently operates from approximately April or May through October, November. So it's the same seasonal activity with a gravel mining operation. So we'll get into more detail about that, but let's go to the next slide, which I think is where it's gonna have Titan speak, but instead what we can do is shift over to the other presentation, if you would. So and I think Adam's on, you're on, correct, Adam?
Correct. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a minute, I'm so sorry,
Yeah,
just.
no, that's all right. This is, we have 4 presentations. It was, oh, there it is, yeah. All right. All right, I'm turning it over to you, Adam, and then it'll come back to me.
Sounds great, Melissa. Thank you. So what we'll focus on, Melissa did a great job opening what we'll be focusing on here, but the investigation for the intersection, as Melissa stated, was US 24 and CR 10. What we looked at was more of the safety aspects, safety components of incorporating this volume, but also the types of vehicles that were actually going to be making these maneuvers through the intersection. And the primary focus that we wanted to look at, if we can go to the next slide, was as I mentioned, not just the volume, but the size of the trucks. As we may know, US 24 is, I believe it through this space, posted at 65, but that is posted. So posted is very subjective. Most folks are going through there, maybe 70, maybe a little faster, maybe a little slower, but 65 is considered a very high speed condition. And so the concern is the overall safety of these vehicles turning onto a state route or a US highway at that speed and being able to accelerate and blend with the existing traffic that's navigating through the intersection at the posted or higher speed. So what we looked at is, we looked at the volume, we looked at the maneuvers and the time periods that these trucks and vehicles would be navigating the intersection. We can go to the next slide. So as we see, the most of the volume is actually going to be making the left turn, and that is going up towards, or a left off of CR10, County Road 10 onto US 24. And there's an existing curve that's approaching a pretty steep, significant grade as you approach that bridge that goes over the existing railroad. And so what we wanted to look at was, what are the existing conditions from a sight distance perspective? And the sight distance perspective gives us an indication of whether proper sight is applied for not only the turning vehicle, but also the approaching vehicle, and to make sure that they can see each other simultaneously to make a judgment call whether they have the space available to make the left turn and merge into US 24, or for even a vehicle on 24 driving down towards the intersection at 65 miles an hour, that they can see the vehicle and stop, come to a complete stop in an appropriate amount of time. So based off that stopping sight distance, we're able to develop a triangle to make sure that there are no visual obstructions when it comes to making sure that these two vehicles can see each other. So when you're seeing on the right of the screen is going to be that sight triangle from the driver's perspective, making the left turn. So this is the distance and space that a driver needs to be able to see to make that left turn onto the US highway. We go to the next slide. So what we wanted to explore was, are there any kind of existing crashes or incidences at the intersection today with the existing conditions, with the existing volumes? That does not include any of the proposed trucks or volume. We were only able to find one, and that's gonna be based off the CDOT crash data. But that one incident actually involved multiple vehicles, and that was a vehicle, going southbound on US 24, and it was essentially a rear end, but it involved three vehicles. And so there was a serious injury reported, but only one with a reported injury and then three minor non-reported injuries. So the existing conditions, there's not much at the intersection today, but looking at the volumes are relatively low. We'll go to the next slide.
Just trying to get a Commissioner Thorpe in our meeting real quick, so.
The landowner and the permittee are also waiting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I tried joining as well and couldn't get in.
Yeah, it's weird because they didn't pop up as asking.
Showing up as anybody is trying to get in.
Did we change the participant permissions?
Whatever the
Oh,
recurring
they have
invite is.
permissions, I think, let's see. Oh, those are just sharing.
Did you change the Zoom link? Is the recurring one, so then they're probably trying to access.
I don't know which Zoom link, it should have been the one from the invite that we're using.
We could invite Elsa at least.
Yeah, but if we have other people that are waiting, we just,
Yeah, the link on the website's open.
the link on the website's not working. Okay. Who else do you have?
Okay, I'm sorry, we'll just have a quick pause on your presentation while we try to
Oh,
figure out.
no problem.
We're having a little bit of a difficulty, so I can copy the invite and I can send it to, let me just, anybody that we need to.
You send it to Brad, and you can send it to whoever.
Yeah, I need to send it,
Is there
send
anyone
it
who
to
can
Aurora
access,
and Lance.
is there anybody who can access the website to stick it on there? Not at this time.
Can you get Justin? Let me just stop sharing. I apologize. Yes, please. And then I'll send it to you. Oh, you're not gonna, okay. Then that will be.
Yep, spend at the wiki.biz, V-I-Z, I-C,
L-E-W-K-I.
K-I, dot V-I-Z.
Hello. Hi, this is Shelby. We're having a planning commission meeting, currently, and our link is not working, we have to order, someone trying to get in for the meeting. Yes.
Put it on the agenda, if that's, I don't know how it is.
That's what I did. On the agenda.
So like, I don't wanna restart. Started, so however, I don't know how that started,
No way.
but
No
lots of
way.
people were on here.
There we go, there's more people.
Yeah, Lyle.
Can I show up?
Yeah, I get you now.
So I just joined from the agenda that was posted on the website.
Okay, so the link on the agenda is working, we just tried it.
But the link, the one that Lance was trying to use is the main,
Needs to go to the agenda.
You need to go to the agenda, I can just do it, go to the website,
Sorry.
it's okay.
so that's different than the posted one on your planning. So right on the main planning website, there's a link to,
It should be on,
that's the active one.
I don't know which one you use, it's either on the agenda or it's on the planning commission,
Sandra did the
Agenda
agenda
set.
then.
Sandra did just update the agenda template, I'm wondering if that's a different.
That's the one that he's using, that's on your main planning commission
Oh.
website.
Yeah, that's not, you need to go to the,
And I just sent him that other
okay,
link.
if you sent
But
it,
that-
I'll figure that out.
I'm guessing that's the issue, that's right on your planning commission website for meetings.
Well, we'll work it out. Jeff James is in.
Yeah, more people.
So Brian, Lyle, and Jeff have all joined, I saw Elsa. Any other?
Just text her, email her, and link.
Who are we trying to get?
Elsa. Can you send it?
Meeting, central lines.
And the actual policy. So does it work in copy of the link? Those emails on there. I have his email. Did you say he's still not even in?
I don't see him
It's
on
not letting him in. There's Lance, he's on.
There's someone texting me that they're trying to get in.
So if they're trying to click the main link on the website, ask them to open the agenda and click on the link that's in the agenda.
that came out today? I sent Laura Flynn, who has a whole bunch of people on hers,
Right.
the agenda, so that
Today.
should work.
Yes, you need to go on today's agenda and there's a link at the top of the header.
It's just one of those applications. Whatever can go wrong.
Okay, we have two people. Elsa. Perhaps it's safe to resume.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. If you know anybody who's trying to join the Zoom call and unable, please direct them away from the link that's on the main planning page and put them on the agenda link. The agenda for today's meeting has a link at the top for the Zoom, and that is the correct link to use. Okay,
Right, back to Adam. Adam, are you still there?
thank you, Adam, sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. I think we're on slide 5.
Am I in the right?
Go one more past this one.
One more?
One more?
Perfect. All right, so the intent of this study was to essentially evaluate a potential mitigation strategy to identify something that could be done to the intersection to provide a safety benefit. Like we mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, the intersection is high speed, and integrating traffic into the intersection, we want to make sure that there's a way for that integration to happen with a little bit more of a safety provision. And so what we explored were 4 alternative geometries to the intersection, utilizing CDOT's State Highway Access Code. And so we looked at essentially adding in an acceleration lane. So for that traffic that is turning left along US 24, they can turn left into their own designated lane and essentially build the acceleration and speed to transition smoothly into the single lane condition that traffic is traveling at 65 miles an hour. So using the CDOT SHAC standards, 65 miles an hour would require a fairly large improvement, which would require additional widening along the corridor, which would essentially interfere with the existing bridge that's out there. When we were able to reduce it to a 55-mile-an-hour acceleration lane, it does avoid the bridge, but it does require still a pretty large amount of widening. We then looked at adding in a non-standard acceleration lane that's very similar to a condition just to the south of the existing intersection on US 24 at CO 82. And then we also looked at other strategies which included additional warning signs, especially as vehicles approach the intersection, just to be aware of the large trucks turning in. If we go to the next slide, we can show a little bit more illustrations of what each one of these alternatives look like. So the four major constraints here, you're going to have the bridge that's essentially overpassing the railroad. You do have a fairly steep embankment as you build the grade to get up there. So B is kind of highlighting some of those embankments and fill slope potentials. You do have a posted speed of 65 miles an hour. And then all the way to the right there with condition C, you see that there is the existing alignment is very close to the existing railroad. So right away is a concern. Next slide. So looking at the 65-mile-an-hour condition for what would be required per the CDOC SHAC standards, it would essentially require bridge widening on that existing overpass, which just from a feasibility standpoint is not feasible. It would require a lot of coordination, very expensive, and would be something that would be very difficult to construct in a timely manner. If we go to the next slide. Looking to more of a non-standard condition, it does provide something that is much more feasible, but it is not something that is essentially preferred by CDOT. An existing condition that's out there today on US 24 and CO 82 is actually being converted to actually a roundabout. So the existing condition is not something they're interested in. So we wanted to just explore it, but not preferred. Go to the next slide, please. Looking to reduce the posted speed by 10 miles an hour does provide something that is a little bit more feasible in the sense of it doesn't require bridge widening, and it does allow for everything to fit within a respectable range when it comes to the amount of widening to get an acceleration lane, but it would require for this speed, posted speed to be reduced by 10 miles an hour, which is not something that's technically preferred. With CDOT, especially if the extents of the corridor are already 65 miles an hour. So just reducing it for this section would be considered not feasible. And then if we go to the next slide, we did look at another condition which would not technically require a speed reduction, but it would provide more warning signs to essentially provide drivers with the understanding of what they're approaching or what they could potentially be approaching with vehicles of this scale. And again, we're talking more of those 75-foot long vehicles merging into the existing condition. So this is more of a warning sign, not a posted speed, but it does provide drivers with the understanding that there are large trucks turning in, be aware of trucks, and these could be fitted within the existing right-of-way, and it wouldn't require any widening. So this would be much more of a feasible alternative. And again, this would be applying warning signs, and you can see in the illustration there, essentially 4 signs, 6 if you include the 60-mile-an-hour warning provision.
Adam, this is Steve Stevens. I had a quick question, if you don't mind. Would those signs be lighted, flashing yellow signs, or would they just be yellow signs?
So because of the high speed, the 65 miles an hour, they would be recommended to be flashing.
Okay.
This illustration doesn't show them, but they would have the 2 beacons on each sign that would have the back and forth flashing designation.
Okay.
Next slide. So we had some meetings with CDOT to essentially go over each alternative. As mentioned, CDOT was not necessarily interested in going with something that was against standard. And when it came to the 65 versus the 55, 65 was completely infeasible just with the bridge widening potential, and then 55 was still considered a little too high speed for the comfortable understanding of vehicles merging in and the potential for sideswipe. So from that point of view, the acceleration lane is not a preferred alternative. And what they were looking more for was the incorporation of potential warning signs. But when it comes to potential, the 55 miles an hour does provide the potential to incorporate some sort of acceleration lane with widening. But for the time being, the preferred alternative was the additions of the warning signs. And again, this is more from CDOT's perspective.
Adam, Steve again, why is the 55 mile per hour not something that's feasible?
You're saying not feasible?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I thought earlier that taking that area and turning it to 55 mile per hour is a slowdown from the 65 that's on the rest of the road. Why is that not feasible?
So to reduce speed, CDOT is not in favor of essentially placing a reduced posted speed for that short a period. It would be required to extend that posted speed to 55 for a larger extent to be considered. So in this case, you're converting 65 miles an hour to 55 for less than a quarter of a mile, and then speeding it back up to 55 miles an hour.
Why couldn't you extend it beyond the quarter of a mile? I mean, that's a warning to everybody in addition to the signs that there's danger ahead with trucks coming in and out of that intersection. I mean, that's all over the country. IDOT, Illinois DOT, all your dots, do that quite regularly on state roads that are 2-lane. That's not unfeasible anywhere else in the country.
Well, I mean, it would require more study, more investigation, and that would have to come from CDOT. But just based off what we were providing and where it was located, it wasn't necessarily something that they were considering at the time. But I do think that they're open for conversation. But for the time, or for the time that we were speaking to them, it was not necessarily supported.
I will say that we have a representative from CDOT here, I believe. So I was gonna have him speak, after that.
Okay, Adam, are you ready for me to progress?
I believe that was it. Yep. Should have been the last slide.
Alright,
All right,
Thank you, Em.
yeah, we're not quite at the too much of the question and answer, so I'm sure it's okay, but,
I think we should address it when the topic comes up
Yeah.
though.
yeah, so bringing it back to staff, I do want, to give Mark an opportunity to introduce yourself and to speak. As you read in the staff report, some of you didn't have the opportunity to read the staff report. We, a month ago or so, on October 20th, Mark was able to come out and take a look at the intersection for the first time. And so, based on that and their work, he's here to talk to us about what they learned, the position that CDOT is taking.
right, and I think it's just fair to say Kimberly Horn is who Lake County went to for the additional safety analysis to bring more information to CDOT, just so that we understand kind of what, why Adam was involved in looking at the safety analysis, and then we've taken that information to CDOT, and so Mark is here to talk to us about that.
So stay here or come up?
Either one?
Yeah, I think you can also stand or
Just be.
I
can let it be right either way.
It probably would feel good
like
to
it.
be able to move.
I'm standing, so not speaking at anybody's back. So my name is Mark Waddle, work for CDOT out of Region 3, headquarters is in Grand Junction. I am the region traffic safety engineer of two main roles. One is I manage all the safety funding that comes to this region of CDOT, and the second is I supervise the highway access unit. So I get directly involved in certain access projects, some of the more sensitive ones, some of the more complex ones. So CDOT's opinion is that there should be a left turn acceleration lane but as Adam mentioned, it would be unfeasible to construct it to standard because of the railroad bridge. A different consultant many years ago, I shouldn't say many, several years ago, did a study up in the Walden area, and they measured the trucks on their acceleration, the time to get up to speed, and determined that a fully loaded gravel truck would take about twice the distance. So providing to CDOT standard, the truck is still not gonna be going anywhere near 55, 60 miles an hour, so you're really going well beyond that bridge. So our opinion is that a short acceleration lane is worse than no acceleration lane at all. We would prefer that the truck sits and waits until there's a large enough gap, and then it pulls out and it's in the lane and has established itself. As Adam mentioned, 82 and 24 right down the road has a short left turn acceleration lane, and there was a serious crash there I think about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, where someone had pulled into that left turn acceleration lane thinking they had sufficient distance. They did not, they moved over and caused that crash that at that location. And as Adam mentioned, CDOT is under design right now to construct a roundabout at that intersection, because we want everybody to slow down in addition to being able to more safely get people on and off the highway there. Another location up on Highway 40 in Grand County had a fatal crash related to a situation where the lane ended unexpectedly and it created a chain reaction and a couple was killed, and they were coming the other direction, just unfortunate that they were wrong place at the wrong time. So that kind of backs up our idea that a short acceleration lane in most circumstances is gonna be worse than none at all. So that was our opinion, and that's why we issued the access permit as we did without any left turn acceleration. It was after that, Kimley Horn with Adam, working with the county that provided us information. We once again took a look at the intersection, the situation, is there something different that could be done? And before I tell you my next statement, I wanna back up and give you a little bit of context to the highway access unit. 5, 6 years ago, CDOT, our access unit, got sued over an access up in Grant County over an easement. Through that lawsuit, we were successful, the appeal was successful, and even the state Supreme Court was successful. The point I tell you about this is after that lawsuit and the proceedings that we went through, we began coordinating with the AG's office a lot closer. So there is a rep assigned to CDOT Access that we go to for all of our legal questions. And starting after that lawsuit, we have a CDOT Access meeting for all of the CDOT Access folks statewide, and they meet about every 2 months. And the AG's office sends their rep to that meeting and they discuss legal topics related to highway access, easements, all the possible things. So anytime we have a question, we can go right to them. Sometimes we wait till the meeting, but we're in close contact with them on sensitive projects to make sure that we don't get sued or that the decisions that we make are backed by state law. So in this case, when we first discussed Adam's information, the question I asked was, could we revoke, rescind, revise the access permit that we have issued? I don't want you going away thinking that we don't agree with what we've done. It was just a question in that legal framework to understand, as it relates to this project, to other projects, and anything going forward, could we revoke a permit? And that was taken to the next access managers meeting a couple weeks later, and the AG's opinion was it would be very difficult. It is a binding contract that both parties have signed, and unless we have information that was not available to us at the time, that is, drastically changing things, the AG's office felt that we would need to stand by the permit unless something drastic changed. And our conclusion that we've come to is that Adam has presented great information, but it's not something new that we did not consider beforehand, and so we feel like we need to honor that permit. The other question that was asked was, the county had designated authority to the applicants to apply for and receive the access permit because County Road 10 is a county road. And so I asked the question, could the county revoke that delegation? And the AG's office said, not for us to weigh in on, that's a county matter. So, and I'm not putting that on the county to even consider that, I'm just saying that I'm letting you know all the questions that we asked, the things that we looked at as we went through this permit. A few notes, I wanna make sure I cover everything that I wanted to talk about. Speed limits. 65 versus 55 versus whatever reduction would be. All speed limit designation, speed studies is handled out of the CDOT headquarters units. There is a unit specifically assigned to come out, investigate, and determine what is an appropriate speed limit. That way it's not on the region level where we can feel the political pressure and other things to make changes when the local folks want it. In working with them for 8-9 years on these types of issues, I know that they're going to say no because there's no context change to the road that would tell a driver something is different other than maybe a warning sign. And the big factor in this is people drive what they feel is safe. And so unless there's something that physically changes in the design, the context of the road, they're most likely going to say no to reducing the speed limits.
Does that include the signs that were proposed? If the two were in conjunction, would that be an adequate reason to drop the speed limit?
It would not be, unfortunately. Some of the examples that we give is, working with communities where Highway 50, Highway 40, other roads go through their downtown areas where it's just, a quarter mile, half mile. These communities are having to construct bulb outs, bring trees in closer and just make the roadway feel much narrower, tighter so that people feel that it's unsafe to drive at a higher speed and that, that's part of the redesign of a road to bring the speed limit down. So out on this section, just because there's gonna be more trucks getting on and off the road is not gonna be enough for them to bring it down.
So, as an example, Climax drops your speed limit to 45 as you're heading up towards Climax Mine on Fremont Pass. Help me.
I would have to look at that specifically and ask the speed study units why that is the case. There are several locations around the region that I look at and I go, I wonder why that's the case. Driving in today on Highway 24, there are certain sections out there north of town, I'm like, why haven't we raised this up to 65 instead of maintaining the 55 or gone 45 up to 55 on some of those straighter stretches? So there are questions that I have regarding some of the things that they do, but from my experience in working with them, I don't see that going to 55 as a possibility.
And not worth a discussion with them, I guess, right?
It's certainly worth a discussion, and the process for that is that the local agency has to request CDOT conduct a speed study. So that would come from the county, submitted to the region, and then we pass it on to headquarters.
Okay.
So it is, I would never discourage you from doing it, but I want to tell you that in my experience, it may not be successful. So after Adam's information, Kimley Horns, we also discussed, would it make sense to relocate the county roads? If that was moved farther south and connected at a different location and had sufficient distance to build a full length left turn acceleration lane, that would be better. How does that work? Well, it would be a matter of the county working on that, the applicants, not exactly sure how that would work, but the county would have to be the one to initiate moving that county road in order to get sufficient distance to build that left turn acceleration. So warning signs, if we were to go the route of adding the warning signs, CDOT's not in favor of continually flashing signs because it only takes once or twice where you drive past a flashing sign and you don't see that actual condition, the drivers then begin to tune it out. So we would look to do something a little fancier where we would have a radar that would be pointed at the side streets that detects a truck and then it turns on the flashers. So that it's an active response instead of a passive where it'd be flashing all the time. We've got 2 types of those systems across the region and I think this would be a great accent to the condition. And so if we wanted to pursue that, we could definitely look at taking the signs to the next level. That was all that I had for notes. You want me to address questions or just?
What about
be
the
done?
trees that are now down? Do you wanna speak to that?
Yeah, so the trees that were blocking sight distance, the applicants went out and cut those down. I think that was actually September that they did that.
Like
And I was,
October 20th?
Under a permit, not just randomly up and down, we applied for a right of way permit to.
And who gave him that?
it's it was a condition in the CDOT access permit that those trees, a couple of those trees had to be cut down to provide the sight distance line. And so they were working under the CDOT permits in order to cut those trees down. That land there, around that curve, pushing towards the railroad is CDOT right of way, and so those were cut down. Probably should have been done years ago. So with those down, we've, the sight line is adequate and, that fulfills that term of the permits. There are others that still have to occur.
Thank you.
You're
Can
welcome.
I make a comment?
Is it public comment? We'll get to public comment here in a little bit.
Well, the reason for me chiming in is I was unable to access this meeting until just now due to the fact that the Zoom meeting link, which is published on the Lake County Commissioner's calendar, is incorrect. So many people that want to attend this meeting have been unable to get into this meeting due to that incorrect link. When you click on the link, it says waiting for the host to arrive, and that was all the way up until 5 minutes ago. So this has been unfair access to this meeting. That other participants would be here if it weren't for this mistake in the presentation of the link to the meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, we were trying to figure out where the Zoom link was incorrect.
Yeah, we
And then-
believe it's correct on the agenda. So if Mike, you're talking to others or they're communicating with you, we've been trying to communicate with the people that are trying to get in, which I think
Yeah.
we've done a pretty good job at. But that was
Well,
on people.
There are a lot of people that would be attending this meeting, I'm sure, that you all may not even be aware of. And when you go to the calendar and it indicates this is the Zoom link and you click on that link and it takes you into Zoom and it puts you in a waiting room in which it says, we're waiting for the host to arrive. One is just sitting there thinking that this meeting has been delayed. What's going on here? You know, we've had so many issues now with lack of proper notification, lack of information being put out to the public. This just does not feel right. I feel like this is just another thing to add, another bullet point to add, which is keeping the public out of this discussion.
I guess I would revert to you as to what our situation is at this
I
point.
mean, there's always gonna be people who can't attend meetings for whatever reason.
Yep.
Certainly, there was nothing intentional done, to limit public access, you know.
But the
Mr.
link
Mr.
is
Woodline,
incorrectly posted.
Can you?
Yeah.
So
Well, Mr. Woodland, I'm gonna ask you to please, thank you. You've spoken and we understand the frustration.
It's not been incorrectly posted, it was correct on the agenda, that's the important part.
Thank you. For those of you on Zoom who have their names, iPhone 7, Zoom user, any of those, please, if you can go ahead and type in your full first and last name on there so that we have that for public record, please.
And to the extent Mr. Woodland makes, make further comments, he can do so during the public
During public comment,
comment.
yes.
All right. Well, back to the presentation, because there's a lot of material that's being talked about tonight, so I want to keep us moving. And I want, Ann raised a good point. After the public hearing on April 28th, we did produce, Adam produced for the county that safety study. And so that's been the primary focus of new information with CDOT, as you've just heard. So the second issue we're here to talk about tonight has to do with noise. And so a noise study was commissioned by the applicant, and Ben with Lewicki is going to present on that. So if we could go to his presentation.
We have a little bit of traffic, but I'll go through
Yeah.
that quickly as well,
Fair
just
enough.
because those are the two topics.
Yeah, I wanted to do both of those things before we get to kind of the approval criteria and conditions.
So I'm gonna start just talking briefly about gravel market and partially our belief that having a gravel source within the county is not necessarily gonna change the overall traffic in the county, right? So there's certainly a traffic increase on the county road onto Highway 24, but a majority of the specification materials like wash materials are coming from out of county up Highway 24 as it is right now. And so while we do obviously acknowledge that there's a chunk of county road which will have increased traffic, it's unlikely that having a second gravel source changes the overall demand inside the county. So that's what these first couple slides are about. And so there is a gravel pit in the county, operated just north of it near the county pit. However, that site is not producing washed products, it's producing a different product stream, so you can't make concrete out of it, for instance, or meet some of the other specifications. The other one, just to make sure everyone's clear on it, is that what is being applied for is the ability to process and sell the gravel materials. So right now, the gravel is mined, it's processed, the gold's removed from the gravel and it's put back in the ground. That some portion of that material would get processed under this application into specification gravel products. So road base, screened rock, wash sand, all the components for building blocks like the roads and homes and sidewalks. It's not likely that mining of new resource just for making gravel is in the plan because it was gonna go through the gold processing units anyways, which is essentially a large wash mine. Sometimes also the production of gravel is imagined to be this large, very long-reaching regional piece, but the average price for a ton of gravel is pretty low, and so the cost to send it really limits the distance that it would go to, right? So it's not going to Denver. It's probably not even leaving the county, because your cost to haul something's quite expensive. And so there's a radius around it where it becomes uneconomic to go past that, so roughly halfway to the next gravel pit or something like that. These are just some of the slides. The county pits are generally dormant. There was a pit up towards Tennessee Pass, which is closed. There's a 110 permit,
Assholes
which
from
is,
McTitan Mining are now giving their presentation.
Please make sure you're all muted on Zoom. I think you can do a mute all.
there is a 110 permit, which is a limited impact permit. That's part of the River Park Recreation Access. It's not really used for public material supply. There's obviously a slag reprocessing permit, which has gone through, and that's in the slag piles south of town. And then Pine Ridge, which is an ACA site, which is has a fair amount of imported specification materials, and then is producing road bases on site.
Yeah.
Everyone probably in this room is well aware of where this is. You can go to the next slide. Predominantly what's being mined for gold is on the margins of the historic dredge piles. So the dredge piles are the big rocky piles that you can see from the road. Those were processed by floating dredges historically. The material that's being processed now is on the edges of that, which was either inaccessible to the dredges or uneconomic at the time the dredges were running. And what's gone on previously since 2018 is that the material is dug up, run through the plant, put back in the hole. And so some portion of that material flow, we would like to process and put into the local markets rather than to just put it back in the hole. That's a aerial view of the same thing. The boundaries on there's lots of limitations on this site related to wetlands, historic mapped areas, and so there's constraints on what can be mined. In fact, we can't even reclaim historic dredge piles that are too close to the historic buildings, because those are included within a historic designation area. And so there's a fair number of rules as to what can be mined and where.
And so I think some of this background was done the first time, I'm sure there are people that weren't here then. Moving to the noise is probably the.
So we'll move towards the noise report. You can skip that, we've talked about it. The gravel, so noise. There are two governing standards on the noise, and the reason there are two is that the county has its own noise ordinance and the state has a noise ordinance, and there are different portions of either time or noise spectrum that govern, and so in some ways the state is more restrictive, and in some ways the county is more restrictive. And so in the case of the modeling, we followed the most restrictive requirements. Typically the requirements are met at the property line, and so you have to meet a DBA standard on the property line. However, in the case of residential, the modeling takes place all the way at the house and drops it to residential levels. So there's a limit at the property line, which is the industrial line, and then at the houses, there's another modeling step that occurs. The decibel system is a little bit tricky, so it's logarithmic. So 60 decibels as compared to 70 decibels. 70 decibels is 10 times louder than 60 decibels. So it's a little bit tough when you look at the number. It's hard to intuit the difference between those two, but a drop of 10 is really 10 times as much of a drop, and so that's just to sort of keep in touch. So we had Serhan Acoustics did our study. We typically use them in very tight areas on the Front Range where there's housing developments immediately on the property line, and so we use very similar techniques to that. One of the major techniques is to keep earthen berms or stockpiles in between the noise generating source, which would be the crushing and screening operation, and sensitive areas like residences. And so that comes from that study, resulting that we need to keep the plant behind berms if we're getting close to that southern boundary where most of the residences are. And that's included in the conditions of approval, things like having that berm in between it. It also has limitations on processing hours, and then areas where we have to keep noise constraints in check in the maps. So if you can slide to the next slide. So that's what you're seeing in here. There is a noise compliant operational area which allows for mining within that area and processing particularly, because that's one of the noisier parts, must occur within that space. Reclamation activities and berm building activities can occur outside of that as part of the protection against noise. So if the site was to move closer to the edge, we could go outside that green boundary and then build a berm to provide additional noise protection if that was required. It's not anticipated that that's going to be required. Most of the operation takes place on the north end. Gravel sales, gravel processing will typically take place on the north end. The gold mining is gonna take place where the gold deposit is, but within those boundaries. Oh, sorry, could you slide back? Just as I referenced before, those green dots are home sites. The number beneath them is the modeled decibels. So 55 is the limit for residential. 50 is about 7 times lower than 55 when it's not on a decibel logarithmic scale or base 10 scale. Next slide, please. Oh, and sorry, forgot. I'm trying to rush through this so we don't spend everyone's time. That blue boundary is not us. There is another placer mine with permits that's allowed to operate in the county called Willow Creek. Not us, adjacent to us. And so there's sometimes confusion that that's all the same person. That's not all the same person. So the noise changes, rather than beeping backup alarms, there's an alternative that makes sort of a swish sound that reduces the carrying distance of the noise, so it's not as disruptive to the surrounding area, but still meets OSHA and MSHA requirements for sufficient backup alarm noises. And so the site is would switch to those. The noise source power levels, that is to say that we would be using modern processing components that meet the noise standards. The orientation of the Grizzly and dump truck filling is going to be tucked away from things. All saleable loads, so any of the finished products for sand and gravel would be loaded onto highway trucks on the far north end of the property where you can see a couple of office trailers right now. The 20-foot tall noise barriers between processing and sales area, so you'd put the plant behind piles so that the plant didn't have line of sight to anyone's home for noise impacts. The updated hours of operation for gravel processing. Originally, the application was looking at 6 days a week. It's reduced to 5 days a week. The earlier hours in there, that 6 AM portion is just for startup of machines and warm up and safety inspections. And that there's a limitation in the condition of approval for processing times as well as startup times. No hauling on Saturday or Sundays. And the gravel operations to remain within the green noise compliant operational area. And this noise study is referenced in the condition of approvals. And so is bound into the county permit that was recorded with the county permit. Next slide, please. Principal hauling will leave the site from that loading area, kind of by the office trailers. It will go on CR 24A, which is a short gravel road. That's 100% maintained by the operation. Then north on CR 10, which is covered by a road maintenance agreement with the county, and that's that paved section. And then enter into the intersection with State Highway 24. The traffic impact study anticipated about 75% of the trips going north, 25% going south. On Highway 24, there's a CDOT access permit issued for that site. There is one clarification on the Kimley Horn presentation. They reference 55 trucks as being the maximum. 55 trucks in the study is actually the annual average, assuming 6 days of operation across 9 months at a typical 25 tons per load. So that's a tractor trailer combo. And so limiting it at a max of that is probably of the order of 50% reduction from the 300,000 tons. But you'll see that in the conditions of approval, that 55 come up again, but it's used in a different way in that condition of approval.
Clarify that, you said 55 trucks
Sir,
per day?
we have to save public comment and questions for the public comment period.
Yes, next slide, please. We've talked extensively about it. The CDOT access permit is at that intersection. That photo up on the top is from before the trees were removed, and you can see that they do block the sight distance of that intersection. The traffic volume is designed at 96 design hour volume, and the reason there's a little bit of confusion on the 55 is that the modern version of traffic access permits are based on peak volume impacts, not on total trips per day. And the biggest reason to think about that is that you could take all of your loads in the day and send them out right at 8 AM or right at 7:30 in the morning when everyone's driving into work or driving into Leadville, and that's much more impactful than the total number that occurred during the day. And so the typical traffic access permits now are issued on peak volume impacts, meaning when the road is full, you can't push too many trucks onto the road. And so that's why those permits are changed, the language has changed. If you look at older permits, CDOT or some county permits, they'll have a total trips per day, but that doesn't constrain the impacts to the community as well as having peak hour volume limits. So Titan put in the application, paid for the traffic study, paid for the design work, and has supported the county in the application. We've been included in part of the meetings with Kimley Horn and CDOT, and mostly our goal is to remain compliant with the permits that we've applied for and been approved. And so whatever those conditions of approval are, we're gonna stick with. The next stage, if the county permit's approved, would be to begin formal design for the intersection, which would then have more review periods that occur with it, and that would give us final construction details, including things like signage. I very much like the idea of having the blinking lights signaled off of actual trucks. I think that's a very modern way to do it. It gives you warning when there's actual things to be warned about rather than just noise while you're driving. Next slide, please. We looked at Kinley Horn Safety Study. I think it is worth noting that the one accident that was recorded in the last 5 years was a deceleration on the coming southbound. And so that's where the rear end occurred, and so the additional deceleration lane might have helped that specific accident. The site distance, tree impact hazard was noted in the application, further noted by Kinley Horn, and then we mitigated those concerns under the right-of-way permit that was granted by CDOT. Next slide, sorry. Kinley Horn did a better job than I could on this. I think they did a very fair and balanced approach. I think Kinley Horn's was looking to reevaluate safety to ensure that everything possible was being done. I think their conclusions came in pretty accurately, and then we obviously saw CDOT's support of the conclusions. Next slide, please. Tree removal occurred just prior to the last meeting that was delayed for noticing issues. Those trees were removed under that permit. That I think it all happened within basically a day of removal of the trees from site under permit. Next slide, please. And that's the difference in site distance taken before and after, roughly a month apart. And so it is probably certainly a good safety improvement for those left-hand turns going into town. I think everyone always a little sad to see trees get cut down, but these ones are just like fire mitigation. Sometimes trees have to get cut down to improve safety. This is super important. I'm not sure if we need to re-talk about it or
I
not.
don't think so,
So we can hop through it, but part of the agreement with the county is that the site acknowledges traffic impacts to county roads, and that's taken care of through a county road maintenance agreement, paid on a per ton fee. The first portion of it paid, immediately addressing the paved section of road of the county road, and then any overage from that is contributed into the road and bridge fund for use within the county. So it's anticipated that it should generate additional funds for other county road repairs. But the first place is to fix the direct impacts from the site. And then the gravel section of the road, that gravel section is 100% on the operator for maintenance, mag chloride, dust abatement, those items, so. And only the paved section is county maintenance paid for by county piece. The operator has responsibilities for the whole gravel section of that road. Next slide. Yeah, so this is traffic pieces that are in here. It would be anticipated at the full production that it would be about $150,000 a year to the budget, with a portion of that applied to the actual road that is being traveled by the trucks, and the remainder available for county use for other road maintenance. This is the list of permits that are in place or waiting to be in place. So the DRMS mining permit's in place. The things that are open would be the gravel permit that we're here for today. There is an air emissions permit in place. It may be amended as needed, depending on the way the processing is going to be planned once, if the permit's approved. Division of Water Resources, there is a gravel well and substitute water supply plan associated with water consumption on site. That augmentation plan is in process with the water courts right now, and it's purchasing water from Pueblo in exchange for the consumptive uses associated with processing materials. No Army Corps of Engineers permits required, we're staying clear of their wetlands or their jurisdictional wetlands. And then no discharge permit because it's all closed loop circulation within the wash ponds.
Thank you. All right, one more piece to the staff part of this. Go back to my presentation. So what I wanna touch on, are the approval criteria. As most of you know, there are 9, criteria for approval. Can go forward. Let's just go to. Let's see. No, go forward, forward. Keep going. We've been through these, do that, let's go. Next one, here we are. So there are 9 criteria that the planning commission and the board have to consider when in an application like this to make a decision. And so I'm gonna pretty briefly go through these. We're sitting here a long time listening to a lot of information that is relevant here, kind of, this starts to tie it up. So, it needs to be consistency with the comprehensive plan, which the primary reason this is consistent has to do with the employment that's generated by the mining activities.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Is there a plan for those to be, is there an actual plan to hire Lake County personnel to go run trucks or whatever you're gonna do in the mining operation, or those be your people?
Dude, shut the.
Do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah,
or wait till
please,
later?
if you
Okay,
could.
sorry.
I mean,
No,
just-
I'd be up
yeah.
to you. Yeah, generally the employees are local.
Okay.
I know that the site manager, I think his house is actually in Silverthorne, but he commutes this direction.
Okay.
But then most everyone there is local on site, as best we can. There's not a,
You don't have a hiring minimum or number or goal?
no, I mean, the goal is always to hire locally, right? It's the lifestyle of having local people is a lot easier than
Okay.
having transient people working for you and
Sure.
any sort of thing. And so that's always the desire with that sort of setup. It's often tough, right? We all have employment issues in Colorado in general, but the mountain towns it's even worse. And so desirably you would hire as many local folks as you could possibly get to come do it.
We're gonna let Melissa go through the conditions and then we'll be able to have questions before we open it up to public comment.
Okay, the second criteria has to do with compliance with the land development code. We talked in the first hearing about it is inconsistent with the RUR, but the existing CUP was approved under the ag forestry zoning, and so that's what we are honoring in this case. And the other portion of that just has to do with that they have submitted all the necessary paperwork, done all the necessary studies for this application. So we can go to 3. This gets into a lot more of the meat of this issue, which has to do, is there adequate public safety and transportation for this application? And so we've talked a lot about that tonight and in the previous night. We know that there's an access permit associated with this. We've talked about the safety study that has been done to look at it. We've got CDOT here speaking to it. So a lot of analysis has gone into that, and we acknowledge the complexity of the safety issues here. Particularly, we've got a road that is, US 24 is not county jurisdiction, but the county does have jurisdiction over a CUP application. So the effort is to figure out, have we adequately addressed the concerns of safety for this intersection to allow the CUP to be approved. So that's number 3. Number 4 has to do with public health, safety and welfare. Again, I think public health has a lot to do with the noise issues and the safety issues that we talked about at the intersection. So again, a noise study was done. That study went into great detail about how it meets the noise generation will meet the decibel levels at the property line, but we know noise isn't that simple. I've heard from many of you about, what it's like to live around this mining operation. We're looking at a gravel mine operation that has not, the processing of gravel anyway and the hauling of it that hasn't occurred yet. So the study helped give us some direction on how to mitigate that. And so condition number 12, which I will talk about, really ties that study to this CUP and the approval of the CUP. And also condition 9, which has been talked about, where we removed Saturday as one of the days that they can haul this gravel. And so both of those things are gonna help reduce the impact. You know, again, the question is that enough? Does that really address adequately any detrimental impact on public health and safety? So let's go to number 5 and 6. It's just in harmony with surrounding uses, you know, I mean, again, this is a complicated issue in many ways because we have this kind of industrial operation happening next door to large residential area. And so again, we believe that a lot of the noise mitigation efforts move us in the right direction. The safety analysis and some of the strategies we've talked about around that have helped begin to reduce some of that impact. So, and as well as the intensity, these things really kind of roll up into one level of discussion. And these two issues really are, I think, the primary issues related to the impacts, the external impacts that this application will have on the community and the roadway system. So are the mitigation measures, as we talk about in the conditions, are they adequate? So again, that's condition 5 and 6. We can go to 7. It will not result in traffic congestion. Again, we've been talking about that this evening. We'll look at one of the conditions that really sort of gets into reducing the number of trips, particularly in the first year, so that we can have some time, if it's approved, in the operations to see how it goes. What we haven't said very much tonight, but that access permit does require a right turn in, turn lane. So that there, you know, there's one auxiliary lane that is proposed and required with this application. You know, that's gonna make some difference. Like CDOT said, a left turn lane would be the best outcome, but there's complexity to why that can't occur. So again, these are difficult criteria to meet in some ways and to just sort of wrap our minds around it. So that there's no unnecessary scar on the land, again, they have to comply with the CRMS permit. And that permit, a lot of that has to do with land reclamation. So as they complete their operations in different portions, the reclamation plan is part of what they're required to do so that you know, the scar on the land eventually will be less. So, and then number 9 has to do with any natural man-made hazards. And again, the mine safety, these kinds of operations are heavily regulated. And so they are required as part of the condition to maintain that permit. So I think the next slide has to do with the recommended conditions, which, like I said early on, there is an existing CUP, that's the file number, and they are required to be in a good standing. There is a substitute water supply plan that they are working through the process of getting approved. It isn't approved right now, but that it is in process and it'll be required prior to their operations. The notice for any final adjudication, augmentation water through Colorado law, we want notice of that so that we are in the loop. Prior to any export of the saleable gravel, they have to get an APIN, which has to do with air quality. So that is in process and will be required to maintain. We talked about the access permit. That's required to be maintained until the access improvements, that right turn in is constructed. Again, the construction of the intersection is required prior to commencement of any of the gravel operations. So that construction will happen before they start hauling if this is approved. Number 7, they commit to providing an annual report, and this is an important part of what ties all this together, because that report is actually gonna occur on a quarterly basis. It's how we'll know how many truck trips, and that they're in compliance with the truck trips that are allowed. We'll be able to collect the annual sales, and all the data that we need to really ensure compliance with CDOT as well as the CUP application. So that's an important one. They're all important. 8, a fully executed road maintenance agreement. We talked more about this last time, but that 50 cents per ton. Again, number 7 helps us track that. So we know how many tons are coming off that site, and that money gets collected and then eventually spent. So that road maintenance agreement isn't finalized right now, it's in pretty much final draft, but it needs to be approved prior to any operations. And the number 9 are hours of operation, which again, we talked about, and you know, if there's any special events in Leadville. Apparently these trucks aren't like overweight vehicles, which I think I found surprising, but it's designed that way, and so they will be able to use our detour routes as part of their operations. Number 10, should a bypass route ever be, you know, become feasible, that we will revisit that, the haul route, in accordance with whatever that bypass route looks like. So that would help potentially keep it out of downtown. Number 11, that one is just sort of a catch-all for us, in case something is said here that, you know, needs to be captured as a condition. 12, we've talked about as a part of the noise mitigation. Again, those A, B, and C come right out of the noise study. These things help, you know, ensure that noise compliance area, that green area that you saw is part of where they will be operating in. That noise barrier, we didn't put the 20 feet, but because it could be bigger, you know, it could be different, but the point is to help block that operation from visibility from the residential homes. So we think that's it was recommended and we're adopting it here. So, and then the backup alarms, we talked about that. So we're getting close to done here. And so any road improvements that CDOT could require at a future time, that while they're still operating, they would be required to contribute a proportional share of the cost. So let's say we get down the road, so to speak, you know, 10 years or something, and it becomes really apparent that that intersection needs to be improved, that they would be at the table and they would have a portion of that. We can only, you know, require what's fair at that point, but this condition allows us to ensure that participation. And then finally, number 14. We wrestled with this a long time, but what we have done here is take and limited the number of truck trips below what the access permit allows to begin with for the first year of operations, so that we do have this sort of startup period to look at how's it going. And we have opportunities through that road maintenance agreement and the reporting that's required to take a look at that, at least on a quarterly basis. Of course, at any time, CDOT has the authority to be able to say, we've got to stop and look at, you know, should there be, you know, a terrible accident of some kind. You know, there are things that trigger a relook at the permit. But what this does is say, basically, the trips are more limited for the first year of operations. And it's based upon the traffic study that was initially presented to us. So those are all of the conditions and all of the criteria. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Seth. So I'm just gonna start with planning commission and county commissioners, if you have any question for staff or the applicant at this time before we move into public comment.
One more question. Relative to covering your trucks and I guess minimizing, this, you can never eliminate it. Rocks coming off your trucks as they're going down Highway 24.
Should be covered loads, just like all the other road requirements.
I mean, is it covered such that
The target roads, just like,
it'll be a target?
Yeah.
Okay.
we would comply with any road
Yeah, you
conditions, so
state requirements.
any of the state requirements for it, so that means the trucks have to be on weight, no weight loads. Trucks have to be tarped if it's a required tarp load. Over width, over height, all those things, just as if we were anyone else.
Okay.
For the scale of that 55 truck limitation, it's about half of the unlimited one, so if you took the other constraints of total tons and truck trips, that's 300,000. If you look at taking the average, which that 55 represents, the average across 9 months, it'll end up being closer to a halving of the total production of the site the first year, but we understand the need for the limit the county like have applied, but that's the scale of it, is that about half.
On that, will you just remind me, what is the CDOT permit limit?
It is related to the peak hour volumes, so
Right.
it's 22 trucks an hour, I think is the 110 total vehicle movements, which is in and out, and then a gravel truck is 3 passenger car equivalent, so do a little bit of math there.
What is the 96?
Oh, sorry, not 110, 96 divided by 3 gets you 32.
But right now, if we're limiting it, I just wanna use numbers to numbers. So if right now, the condition is proposing to limit it to 55 trucks, what can it go up to based on the CDOT permit?
What could it go up to? It could go up to whatever that peak hourly amount is. So if for some reason all of it needed to, all that gravel haulage happened in May, maybe all 300,000 would fit within that CDOT permit if it was like right at the top. But the biggest part of the limit on gravel trucks is really in the morning, where like everyone, all those trucks line up because they wanna get the first load to get to the project. That's coincides with identically with when everyone's driving to work, and so that peak truck limit is placed at that hourly piece, so it's not a apples to apples, that's the problem, is that in the traffic analysis study, it says 300,000 divided by 9 months, divided by 6 days in the week over 9 months, gets you 55 as an average across 9 months of haulage. And then that 9 months is prorated across the months based on CDOT tables, and then prorated across the hours in the day by CDOT tables to determine the traffic volume to be expected at the intersection. And then that peak hourly traffic volume at the intersection is used to determine impacts to the quality of service at the intersection. And the maintaining of the quality of service at the intersection on all of the turning patterns. The only turning pattern which required additional turns was the deceleration southbound lane was the only required lane. However, additional safety studies indicate that a left-hand lane would be great, but it doesn't fit in. And so, but it's all of the application, we've followed all of the rules to put in the application for it, and have not asked for any variance from any of those. But the extra 55 limit was at the request of county planning staff, because they wanted it to be less
Well,
in
and
that
it's
first year.
110 trips, so it's 55 out and 55 in, and you get to 110. And the permit is issued at
Not average, single day.
single day.
single day, so that, you
If
said.
our application was average, their limit is single day. And so the difference is, our application put in the word average is being taken as limit.
Confuse the issue.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to confuse anything, that's how it's laid out. If it was our preference, we would just adhere to the CDOT traffic permit and the tonnage. It's unlikely that we will hit that peak tonnage, cause it's a market demand issue, there's not an unlimited market for selling gravel.
But theoretically, instead of talking about an average, CDOT requirement would allow you to do 22 trucks an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm trying to say.
I think continuing on to that, because the example you gave was 6 days and now going down to 5, does that mean that there are more trucks being allowed because there's now less
No.
days?
There's not any more there's 20% less trucks allowed by limiting the day. So again, that limitation, even if there isn't the additional limitation of 55, we're still limited to 300,000 tons annually, and then the peak hour volumes required from CDOT. And on top of that, there's another one takes the number which was an average and turns it into a max. So it's essentially it gets continued to cut down. So but that one gets released if everything stays okay after the first year, that 55. And that's a comfort issue for the county. It's unlikely that that number gets hit anyways, because it's market driven, you know. Depends on how many houses get built in the county. It's a big
The
decider.
real risk is the 22 per hour, the CDOT's permit allows, that's the real risk here.
Yeah, that's the biggest, that's, to me, the safety and impact to community, that is the principal limitation, is maintenance with that, and that's why the way the reporting language in the COA that I know that Ann worked very hard with us on was to make sure that the applicant was required to submit the sufficient data that we can show compliance on a daily basis, that we never let 22 trucks leave or 23 trucks leave within an hour window. And so that means time-stamped scale tickets that have total tonnage on them for ship tonnage to make sure we're under the 300. And so the reporting characteristics of the COAs are super important, right? Because there's lots of limits based on different math. If the applicant's not providing the sufficient data to do the math, then it's very hard for the county to see if they're compliant or not. And so Ann and Melissa worked with us for a very long time getting that wording right on the language. It has to go in the reports.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for planning commission or county commissioners?
You can go.
Okay, on criteria 7, about the conditional use will not result in traffic congestion or hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. The applicant responses, the study concludes that increased haulage will have little to no impact to the traffic on surrounding roads. So right now, there's 0 gravel trucks hauling on County Road 10. Now there's gonna be 110 on average. I wouldn't classify that as little to no impact.
Based on the criteria of the access permit and the service level of the intersections, there's little to no impact except for the southbound deceleration lane, which requires an improvement. So the only thing that we could statistically measure or measure results in a little to no impact except for southbound deceleration.
Okay, and then Mark from CDOT began by saying it's the opinion of CDOT that there should be a southbound acceleration lane, but it just can't be fit or done economically, so there's not gonna be one. So to me, that's a compromise in the traffic congestion at the intersection of 24 and 10. That's a statement, that's not a question. Wanna go?
And staff would just
I
offer
think you
one
said southbound.
clarifying.
No, he meant southbound. It's very difficult to make that turn if there's a vehicle in that intersection. Already as is. If it's a semi, that makes a big difference. And
So
there's not a
I'm gonna,
real,
The
there's not a real
comprehensive
lane.
plan on the first.
I have to
First
ask
bullet
you
point.
to please respect the situation. If we all start talking at once, we will be in here until midnight, and I really don't wanna do that. I will promise you that you're gonna have 2 minutes to talk.
2 minutes,
Everybody's gonna get their 2 minutes to speak.
that's not enough.
And that's the process. If it's not, I apologize, you're welcome to write into staff any additional comments that you may have. But this is where we're at. So if we can continue, we'll make sure that we have time.
So, keep going up,
Is it 14?
number 1. Point number 1, approval criteria.
Next slide up there.
There. So this is a question for you. Forgive me, but could you help explain to me what some of the benefits, just very quickly, would be by approving this, that would go back to the community?
I think the most immediate one would be local aggregate supply for construction. The price of hauling in gravel from Buena Vista is not cheap. That's probably the most impactful that the community would feel. There is employment on site right now, there would be some additional employment for the gravel processing. But probably the biggest one is supplying construction materials for roads, homes, sidewalks, public infrastructure. That's always the number one reason why you have a gravel pit somewhere near development, right? Is that we consume it.
And from what you said earlier, it becomes unfeasible and unprofitable the further you take the gravel out.
Yeah, so you would, at the price point of gravel, it feels real expensive when you're building your own driveway.
Yeah.
However, a lot of the expense that you feel coming to your driveway is the addition of the hauls from the gravel pit to your house. It's often doubles the price, right? If you had your own truck and got loaded at the gravel pit, half of that price of getting it delivered. If you double the distance of getting it delivered, now 2/3 of the price of that gravel is the delivery charge versus the other part. And so that's how you would feel it as a community, would be a reduction in the haulage cost to building a gravel road or something like that. But if if you're like, oh, we're gonna haul it to Denver, well, there's gravel pits in Denver that are a lot closer than there. Even if you were to say haul it in some county, there's gravel supply in some county already. You probably don't get over Climax Pass before the break-even point of the cost of hauling the load goes there. Same thing goes going into Eagle County, right, is that there's pits in Eagle County that can haul in a lot cheaper than that. So the limit is an economic limit, that this is a local supply bulk commodity that is highly impacted by haulage costs.
Got it. And this is a statement, just looking at all the people in the room, I'm sure for personal reasons, they don't necessarily want a gravel pit right next to their house. But I think back on all the things that we have done and made decisions on in the past, and how other counties have basically used our resources, and we've been left holding the bag. And when the plan was said to, hopefully we intend to hire locally, for me, that kind of hits home, where I hope that is a big emphasis, because the external people coming in, they use our resources and then they're gone.
And I do think that the site predominantly is local employees that are from here. And the desire would be to hire locally.
I think one of the reports said it'll increase the employment by one person, the operator of the crushing plant. So
I
one
think
person.
one or two, it's not much.
Okay. Can I ask Ann a question?
Yes.
Ann, are there any operations in this county that have 110 trucks a day?
Under a similar permit, slag, we didn't, I don't have that number, with me today, but I don't think that their volume is as high as that.
But nothing in operation right now? Okay, so again, I think.
And ACA, I don't, ACA also holds, CUP as well. Not to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that's something that you've looked at, is it? What those volumes are. The most recent one was slag. And I know that volume isn't quite as high as this, but I can't verify.
Yeah,
Neither confirm nor deny it, ACA.
I wasn't aware that ACA imports spec gravel.
Well, not imports,
Crushed.
but you meant that they have
Any-
their own DRMS permit.
Anything
Yeah.
in this county.
They do come back into the Board of County Commissioners whenever they pick up like a CDOT contract and ask for an extended trucking, a different volume of trucks. So they have done that before when they've had like a CDOT permit or something like that. They've come back in and asked for a readjustment.
Okay. I have another question for the applicant. I know that the studies show that the noise will meet requirements. Will the crushing operation increase the noise level above what's currently occurring at the gravel pit?
It's not likely to. because the crushing and screening is occurring on the far north end of the property. So it's further away from, the mining area is closer to the homes, where the gold and bearing gravels are. For the scale of pit, just to give reference to it, a 300,000 ton max limit pit would be a typical limit that you'd see sort of anywhere on the western slope, even in small rural counties, it's often that limit. And the reason for it is that you will occasionally have like a highway project where you have a large consumption in one year where paving in 24 happens, and then it drops back down to much lower levels on average. But you wouldn't want to go through 4 years worth of hearings for a CDOT project that lets in 12 months. Because we've been at this process for about 4 years to get a gravel production permit with the county. But the number of 300 is a very typical rural county size permit.
In the study, and this is also you guys as well, do we have any hard numbers on if this is approved, the gravel that is being used ultimately put back into the county and the community will reduce operational costs here, or by this percent? Do we have any of that? Okay.
No, we don't have anything quite like that. I will say that I do believe that the Swags DMS permit is about half of it, it's around 150,000 tons. But no, we don't have any kind of concrete information.
And it's a competitive market, right? So people will be buying what they can afford and when it's available, and so it's difficult to say exactly how that's gonna play out. That's like the 300,000, they may or may not ever hit that.
It's just, it's call it crazy, it's concerning that we don't know that, because if that is the benefit that is going back to the community, maybe just having something in that area, I know it's hard.
I think that market is constantly changing, of what our local demand is, and I think it certainly fluctuates. But it's not necessarily a planning, review that we would do or within the scope of the code to, because that is obviously a variable. Obviously, if there's, I think the bigger picture would be to consider, the cost of trucking and that, reasonably these materials will be used locally, but what our actual production is, from these other, sources, or how much of the material is used locally. I think Michael Irwin is joining us too.
He's on.
I don't know if Michael has an idea of just from his experience in doing public infrastructure, what kind of local tonnage is used. But that's just not.
That's it, that's all I had. Feel free to open it up, if nobody else has anything.
Okay, commissioners, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like a typical rule of thumb, it's probably worse now than it was a few years ago, but it's about 25 cents a ton mile for gravel. And so for every mile that your gravel travels to you is about 25 cents. So it's quite a big penalty to have to haul it a long distance. And that comes from, it's roughly $100 an hour for a dump truck, and you get 22 tons on one, and you can travel at a certain speed. So that's like a reasonable thumbs up sort of number to get an idea for what that is.
Yeah, and to then turn and equate that monetarily, I think it's just really hard because our market, even just for construction, has changed so much over the last 7 years that there hasn't been enough time for an average. It's gone up and down and now down, and so it's just kind of like, I think you could get one consultant to say one thing and another one to say something else, and I don't know how much weight we would really be able to put on that, just from that variable. If we were a very consistent market of construction, then I think it might be a little easier, and especially if a gravel pit shut down and we were replacing it, it'd be a lot easier to figure that out. I just don't know how we would do it here and have it be numbers that at least I would feel like are valid. I think it'd be really
It's
hard
probably
to
not gonna be big.
create that
That's what I'm
number.
thinking, it's probably not gonna be a huge number. But there is a benefit.
Any questions from county commissioners?
None from me, thanks. I've got one. I've got two.
Do it.
First question, would you have the ability to make road base, including a classed road base? And second question is, the ACA pit closes at 5 and they want you in there at 4:30 or you're not getting served. So they're basically open from 8 to 5. So that second part of the question is, would you be willing to reduce your hours to 5 and start at 8, 7 to 5 instead of what's 7 to 7 now? And then just for the record, this is a statement. I've been to ACA a lot this summer. They'll have whole days where there aren't any trucks. So that come and buy gravel. So just a quick statement there. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Was that aimed at us, some of those questions?
Mhm.
As far as the materials produced, it would be whatever the market was asking for. From landscape rocks to, road base, wash sand, C33 sand for septic fields, whatever is the market demands. I think the hours that we worked on are what we'd like to stick with. They're less than asked for already. We've dropped out a day and dropped out hours off of them already. I don't think we're super interested in reducing further. Is there another question that was in there, or did I get
Nope,
those?
those were just you. I think Commissioner Lee said no, but, Commissioner Tharp, did you have any questions before we turn it
No.
over? Okay.
Sorry, thank you, no.
Yeah, okay. I have a checklist sign up sheet here. Has everybody who is in this room had a chance to write your name on here?
Please add my name to the list. My name's on the list, but I wanna speak.
Oh, just write a yes
David
next to you?
Stout.
Okay. I'll probably go through everybody's name, even if you said no, just in case you changed your mind. And then for those of you on Zoom, I still have an iPhone 7 on there without a name, if I could get you to rename yourself. I will go through, the people in the room first, and then I will open it up one by one for Zoomers. If you have any public comment, if staff can be our timer for 2 minutes. And again, please, direct your comments or questions to us, and we will keep track of them, and, we will then allow at the end of that responses from the applicant and staff. We don't need dialogue within the room, so we'll start with that. I have Jeff James.
Members of the Planning Commission, fellow residents, my name is Jeff James. I'm speaking on behalf of my family and my parents, Jerry and Denise, who are property owners directly adjacent to the Box Creek mine at 1499 Lake County Road 24. They couldn't attend today, but they are joining by Zoom. We've lived with the impact of this mining operation since 2019, and we're here to urge you to deny conditional use permit 2403 for its expansion. We fully support the detailed opposition letter and the letter that we submitted, the one that was submitted by Paul and Meredith Terranova on September 3rd, 2025, which methodically outlines how this project fails every one of the 8 approval, which now more criterion that were added tonight that were presented. Their analysis is spot on. This expansion contradicts our community's draft values from the ongoing comprehensive plan update, like our connection to nature, nurturing our roots, and caring for our neighbors. It also is imposing a crushing noise, dust that has impacted our indoor air quality as well as the outdoor air quality and those who are directly around us. It perpetuates the zoning error from the 2019 permit where the site was wrongfully classified as an agricultural forestry instead of a rural, and making gravel processing a byproduct of prohibited mining. These studies are incomplete and flawed. The noise assessment ignores higher elevation homes, multi-story structures like the one that we live in, as well as the ones in Panarch, potentially violating the 55 decibel limit, which was presented here today, which I can guarantee you it is higher than that. I can hear it inside my home, can hear it inside my conference center, and I can hear it inside of each of the cabins on our property. The traffic study dismisses, the one that was presented tonight, dismisses a number of things that are associated with it, including but not limited to trucks waiting on the road on Highway 10, as well as the traffic going through the city of Leadville, especially not just impacting the dates of special events that happen in our city and our county, but the adjacent or shoulder dates that are associated with those. It also does not necessarily improve any of the life or quality of the area. And I would ask these questions as my time is ending, as based on the conversation that was happening today.
I have to cut you off. If there's somebody else who can ask your questions in their 2 minutes,
Yes,
we
this
can do
gentleman
that.
right here can ask my questions. Ken Day, he's here, you can just vote
Okay.
as a yes.
I will add it. I don't see Ken Bay. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay.
Increase,
Yep, go ahead.
increase in cost to manage the indoor air quality to residents. That's question number one. Does CDOT, do any study for the traffic through Leadville?
Okay.
What is the economic impact for the increase or loss of tourism? Monthly versus an average of 55 didn't address the waiting trucks on the road. Has the county thought about how they will manage the permit for the applicant's consistent compliance? Increase in expense to the county to monitor this. And the 300-ton demand in Lake County, what is the 10-year average?
Okay, thank you.
And is it a commercial need or a public need?
Can you turn name for the record, please?
Ken,
I have him on here. Ken Bay, B-A-Y-E. All right, I have Mark Tillery. Mike O'Leary.
Yes, ma'am. I am one of the green dots on the map that this young man showed. And I don't know where he got his data from, but I'm gonna play something for you if you don't mind. Excuse me one second. This is on my deck.
Pretty bad.
And I guarantee you that I'm not even the closest resident to the mining. I'm gonna approach this from a different viewpoint. I assess the value of the homes on Lodgepole. Lodgepole is the street that's closest to the mining. And the assessed values by the county is $10.7 million. That includes also 2 houses that weren't on that map, that aren't part of the Panarch subdivision. One of those houses is up for sale. And he has had 2 people, per se, come to his property, and they, as soon as they heard the mining noise, they left the property with no, I do not want to buy that property. They asked, what would you be able to do? And they said maybe 15% reduction. The average home on Lodgepole is $767,000. Those 14 homes on Lodgepole. If you lose 10 to 15% on those homes, you're looking obviously over $1 million assessment or property value. And that's just one street.
Okay, I'm
There-
sorry, your time is up, but I get the point. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kathleen O'Leary, do you wanna continue?
No, I'm not on it, but I'm just concerned about the tourist traffic on the road. It's heavy, it gets heavier every year. And them having to, they don't know this area, and that's what I'm also concerned about, other than our home.
Ben Miller.
That's me.
Sydney O'Connor, or no, just Sydney Connor.
Yeah, I don't have any comments.
And I have, sorry if I butcher this, Christian Borowski? Nobody? Okay. Warren Flint?
Yes,
Yes.
I have concerns with the traffic on, or the intersection. How long does it take a fully loaded truck to clear that highway, 24? And, you get somebody coming down 65 miles an hour, how far away do we have to be? So if they don't slow down, they can clear that truck, or the truck can clear them. And are they gonna be gopping it? There's Mount Albert right there. If they don't pay attention, are they gonna pile into one of these trucks? And that's not talking about the northbound ones that are coming to 65. And as far as noise, I live in Beaver Lake, so the mining activity doesn't bother me. But I do go to lunch every day, and the trucks on that highway, the diesels, putting out their smoke. They'll be stopping, in the summertime. It's not just the red light, it's the people crossing at the normal streets that are gonna stop those trucks. So they'll have to start up every time, and you're gonna get the fumes from the diesels. And again, a lot of the, I wouldn't say a lot, there's several restaurants that have outdoor seating.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a pain, I think. But I think my main concern is the 10 and 24. I think the way it is now, sooner or later, there's gonna be a serious accident. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anita Mason.
I said no,
Okay. Joan Weber.
that doesn't happen often either.
Well, sometimes people change their minds, so I usually just go through the list. June.
Okay, from what I've heard here tonight, there have been no solutions for the traffic at County Road 10 and 24. No real concrete solutions that solves the traffic problem. Am I wrong? I mean, and without that solution, I don't see how you can even consider this. Secondly, who is out there at the mine, the gravel pit and all that, monitoring to see that everything's being complied to? Because I know it's not. I mean, already they have a weight thing out there to weigh their trucks with the rocks in it. And this hasn't even been approved. But it makes you think, well, what's going on here? But I mean, and a lot of comments coming from you, sir, are very vague. Like, we can probably do this, or maybe that, or
Likely.
it's likely. I mean, that doesn't work. We need facts and we need guarantees about what's going on here. But to all the people who are voting on this, if you care about our community, you will not pass this. And I'm not just talking about Panarch community, but I'm talking about Leadville, the whole Lake County. This is gonna affect, you have kids walking through streets, they don't look to see there's a big old truck coming. I mean, it's dangerous. So I urge you to vote against this.
Okay. Jackie, I assume you're here for something else, but.
Sure am, thanks.
Okay. David Stout?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting earlier, but we're getting railroaded. And our county elected officials, commissioners, you need to stand up for the people that have already invested in this county. This will affect the entire southern half of the county. It affects our property values, it affects our air quality, it affects wildlife migration habits. What's gonna happen with the elk? What's gonna happen with the antelope? They routinely migrate across that road. I've had numerous encounters in the 25 years I've lived in Panarch. The noise is already intolerable. And I don't live close to the mine, I live well into Panarch. It goes from sunup to sundown. including in June, the longest day of the year. That's ridiculous. I urge y'all to vote against this. Protect your neighbors. Don't sell out.
Okay, thank you. Mark,
And that 2 minutes is not long enough, sorry.
you did great, you felt all right with it.
No, I got a lot more to say.
Mark Bunnell? Oh, that's you, sorry. Peter Day.
I'll address both noise and safety. The staff report states that the conclusions of the noise report have been added as conditions of approval. That report recommended a 20-foot tall noise barrier. However, condition number 12 omits the 20-foot tall requirement. The requirement should be reinstated. On to the 24 and 10 safety study. The staff report states that the staff remains concerned that the traffic hazards have not been properly mitigated and believes that these safety concerns remain compelling. Risk will increase with the number of vehicles using the intersection. 3 traffic safety studies and the applicant have previously assumed only 110 trips per day. Condition 14 introduces phased. Read that to be increasing traffic operations that only begin with 110 trips per day. This is new. The assumptions used in the traffic studies will no longer be valid. County staff would be allowed to approve the export of 300,000 tons of aggregate per year with no constraints on the number of trucks using the intersection as long as CDOT's 96 DHV limit is met and there are no additional safety concerns. A significantly higher number of trucks in the intersection has not been previously considered. This waiver could be approved after just 1 year of operations with no guarantee that in that first year 110 trips per day had even occurred. County staff should not be empowered to waive the trips requirement. If the applicant wishes to increase trips, it should present additional studies and seek BOCC approval. As a point of reference, a condition of the slag aggregate CUP approved in 2022 is that the BOC must approve any increases in truck trips. Condition number 4 should be limited and only 110 trips per day allowed. Finally, negotiation of the road maintenance agreement should precede BOCC approval of the CUP. The BOCC should understand final terms before CUP approval. Condition 8 should be revised. I hope you have read and considered my more comprehensive written comments. The CUP should be denied, but if there is to be approval with conditions, conditions 8 and 12 need work, and condition number 14 eliminated.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was right on. Okay. Finn McNally. Salem.
Sumrall, that's me. I'm here to talk about an aspect of road safety and noise quality that I haven't really heard addressed yet, is the impact on wildlife and how that affects not only wildlife but human safety in regards to it. According to CDOT, Lake County just last year had 12 wildlife collisions just reported, not the ones not reported. And through 2010 and 2014, they had 183 related to wildlife collisions, and that's before adding all this traffic into an area that is highly important for both elk and mule deer migrations. With the animals involved, they're extremely set in their migration routes, and they will try to cross whether there's an increased amount of traffic or not. And if they try to move to a quieter place, there's no telling where they could go and what part of the road is gonna be affected from there. You actually had an interesting question about stopping speeds. I have things printed out, I can leave them for anyone who's interested, a couple of studies and some maps. And according to one study, a vehicle traveling at 60 miles per hour has a stopping distance of 145 to 172 meters after the driver first detects, in this case, an animal in the road. This is a longer distance than the detection distance afforded by most vehicle high beam headlights and all vehicle low beam headlights. In other words, at this speed, most vehicles are outrunning their headlights and drivers cannot avoid a collision unless the animal or vehicle moves out of its current path. This also applies to giant trucks turning onto a road where the speed limit is 65 miles an hour. And as for reducing the speed limit, this same study finds that reducing the speed limit does not affect wildlife collision rates. Because people, as it was mentioned before, will drive at the speed they think is safe, not what the speed limit says. And as for noise quality, animals are highly impacted by this.
Thank you. Betty? George?
Oh, no, he asked my question,
Okay.
or he stole my question.
Our pretend planning commissioner. Okay, Zoomers, hopefully y'all know how, an iPhone 7, you're still iPhone 7, I guess. If you have public comment, I would ask that you raise your hand and then I will call on you individually for your 2 minutes. And we'll give you a minute to figure that out. Down at the bottom, there's reactions and that's where you can click to raise your hand. Carrie Slipka.
I am one of those green dots in that boundary on Lodgepole. And the noise is ridiculous in the summer. And, you know, we were there this last 2 weeks ago and it was so early, 6 in the morning, I could hear the trucks and they woke me up in the house with the noise and the beeping. It's just ridiculous. The traffic increase, like Joan and Mike have talked about. In the summer, there are so many cars that are using that road now to get up to the forebay and all the camping that I can just see a collision waiting to happen. So the noise from where I am, the property values, you know, I don't want my property values going down anymore. Just like Mike, it's ridiculous. You know, we shouldn't have to deal with property value decreases because of a gravel pit or not being able to sell our house like the Luths because of the gravel pit and the mine. We should be able to sell them and get fair market value because that's why we bought out there, for the quiet, the pristine, and the nature of the area. Not to listen to trucks and gravel and crushers and noise consistently that do go past their allotted time in the evenings.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Laura Flynn.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. I have 3 points. I just want to reiterate that I had given the county commissioners well over 500 signatures earlier. There would have been more, but we were trying to make your first meeting, which was pushed back 4 times. There would have been more than 500 signatures of the citizens. And these are people that voted for our county commissioners, and we expect our county commissioners to protect us. Number 2, the noise sample. I sent a noise sample to the county commissioners to listen to. I would be happy to provide that to any of you that would like it. It's only 1 minute and 33 seconds long. It is from Ms. Slipka's phone and from my phone, an iPhone, on our decks. And you will see it is the same as Mr. O'Leary's, very, very loud. And it does bounce off the mountain, even amplifying it. And number 3, the haul costs for gravel, I mean, versus 20 years of this noise does not even compare. I will pay $200 or $300 or $400 to get gravel hauled in if I have to. There are 3 other pits around here. We don't need another one. I appreciate it, and I would love to know if you would like to have that sound sample. I will reach out to Melissa if you would let her know, and I will send it to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Laura. I have Clara and Steve Kern.
Yeah, I just want to say that my wife and I have been residents of Pan for over 40 years and never thought we'd have to deal with something like this. But several of the residents have already spoke and brought up very valid points. And I think the biggest thing for us is the noise as well as the safety. When you pull out onto County Road 24 and you're going up over that overpass, you can't tell me that those trucks are going to accelerate up to speed in a reasonable amount of time. They won't accelerate until they're going down the other side of that overpass. So that's a half a mile away from where they pull onto the road, and I can't see any way to make that safe. The other thing is, which was talked about, is the noise. But the noise is such an issue at that altitude. It travels well beyond the normal boundaries. So I don't think their berms are going to help. It's just an excuse. And we would urge you to definitely vote against this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Mike Woodland.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
I urge you to vote against this proposal. The applicant stated the supply of construction materials would be the primary benefit to our county. The detrimental impacts to the county and residents far exceed the benefits. To me, it's a no-brainer that the supply of construction materials should not come at the detriment of health, safety, and welfare of residents and the people who visit Lake County. Air quality would be impacted by dust, emissions, exhaust from constant flow of heavy trucks and equipment. Noise and air pollution from this operation, including 110 trucks, sound of heavy equipment and machinery, crushing, vibrating, etc. This noise pollution would change the environment from pristine, quiet, and peaceful to dirty, noisy, and unbearable. The noise would be detrimental to humans, wildlife, the environment, Leadville, and surrounding neighborhoods. Water could also be impacted in the area. Vibrations and shaking, even if only detected by monitors, have impact on humans, wildlife, vegetation, etc. As CDOT stated, there are no effective ways to handle traffic congestion, safety hazards, serious fatal hazards will exist there. As a realtor for over 30 years, I can attest to the fact this operation will negatively impact the desirability and demand for Pan-Arc and surrounding neighborhoods, which will result in a decline in property values, taxable revenue, and possibly even trigger foreclosures and tax payment defaults if people can't sell their home or land and can't afford to pay for higher taxes. This proposed operation is in direct contrast to all of the land use of the surrounding site. It is inconsistent. Please, I urge you to vote no on the proposed project. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up on Zoom. Are there any other Zoom public commenters?
Might I just ask when you will be making your decision? I'm sure a lot of people wonder.
So the process for this evening is here in a minute, if there's no more public comment, and no more conversations between planning commission and the applicant, we will close public hearing. We will deliberate and presumably make our motion of recommendation to the county commissioners. Then the county commissioners will take that recommendation and presumably hear it at their next county commissioner hearing, which would be,
It's not scheduled right now.
okay,
Can I make one clarifying question?
yes.
So even if you don't approve this permit, it changes nothing about what is currently happening. The
Correct, if you have
same noise
any-
continues
if
as
there-
it is now.
Yes. If there are any complaints that perhaps that existing permit has violations, those are things that you would wanna take up with the county. Okay. Any
Is there
other,
any enforcement mechanism within the county? For instance, noise, the current noise.
Well, any any complaint, I mean, the county operates, and I'll let staff answer that maybe better than I will.
So how would,
Gabe, I'm happy to answer that question. So we are complaint driven. We have an enforcement part of community planning and development. So if we receive a complaint from the community, we do investigate it. The existing conditional use permit does have to remain in good standing, and there are conditions of approval for it, as well as those decibel levels that are also have to be in compliance. So if we receive complaints, we do investigate those and follow up in open cases.
you investigate?
No.
Where did
No, there's
they,
also enforcement, so conditional use permits by their very nature have to stay in good standing, or we take it before the Board of County Commissioners for a due cause hearing for potentially revocation of those permits. So there are, depending on the outcomes and the finding of the board, there is very strict enforcement and conditional use permits.
the reason I ask is because, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Melissa.
But you kept talking about putting the toothpaste back in the tube. That, you mentioned when you're going through your list, you mentioned a number of times that we can always go back on this. If we find that they're not in compliance, we can always take the permit away, or we can deal with this.
That is the due cause hearing. Mhm.
Okay. And I'm wondering how that works, because I don't see it. I don't see it. I think you're blowing
Yeah.
smoke, I think you're blowing smoke up our ass when you
Oh,
say that.
okay, I think if there's questions about that process, I will ask you to take that up with staff, outside of this hearing, but that is, as Ann explained, that is the process that the county takes on. If there's a complaint, they investigate that complaint. If there's findings that they're not in compliant with their permit, then they bring that to the county commissioners for a hearing to potentially revoke the conditional use permit. I believe there's even been one revoked in the past, since I've been on here, but that's the process. If it needs changing, then that's not tonight's conversation, but that's the current process with the
No, but what is tonight's conversation is whether this vote is approved or not, and that should certainly be a factor in your decision making.
Oh, right.
On whether that you can actually get compliance from this company, because that has not happened to this point.
Okay.
That's why I bring up the history. Every single person talked about the noise.
Thank you. I did write that all down, I promise. Any questions from county commissioners or planning commission for the applicant before I entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion of this? Yeah,
None from me.
okay,
None from me.
okay, great, thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing portion of the meeting?
I so move.
Real quick, could I have someone address to me the fact that the link to this meeting was not correctly posted on the calendar? Because there would be many more people speaking out against this project, had that link been posted correctly.
Well, it was posted correctly. The legal notice is the agenda under the Colorado Open Records or Open Meetings Law. And the agenda had the correct link. The fact that some people were clicking the generic link, I think we're all sorry that happened, but certainly we took a lot of steps to mitigate it. The hearing was stopped for a number of minutes. You folks could have reached out to other people during that time period if you knew other people were trying to access. They could have joined the meeting, they could have commented. They literally had an hour to do that.
But the calendar gives the link to the Zoom meeting. That link is incorrect. You are directing people to a dead link. It does not say in the calendar to go to the agenda for the correct link. You've got two completely different links, and people are going to go to that calendar and click on the link that you say is the link to this meeting.
we understand your concern, Mr. Woodland, it's been heard. My legal opinion as the county attorney is that the legal notice to this meeting was proper.
Yes, and again,
Thank you.
we're sorry that there was confusion with that. It certainly was not intentional, trust me. We didn't wanna continue this any longer than anybody else. Kevin Kirstner, you're kinda coming in right after we've already asked for public comment, but I will go for it.
Thank you. I just want to second Mike's point. I understand that you're talking about whether the notice is legal or not, but you also have to maintain an appearance of impropriety and, you know, look like you're trying to do the right thing by the community. And Mr. County Attorney, your response doesn't show that. And, you know, the way the board and the Planning Commission is responding to that concern doesn't show that appearance of impropriety along with everything else that's going on. So I just want to make sure that's, you know, super clear to everybody that, yeah, you have legal notice, but it really looks frankly shady that you're doing it and the way that you're responding to people who have concerns about this. So thanks.
Well, Kevin, I'll respond then. I don't know how many people sitting in this room who have come to this meeting and we've had to continue it, I don't know how many times. And to stop this meeting and forward it to a future date because one of the Zoom links online was incorrect and not intentionally incorrect, felt like it would be a far bigger disservice to the people who have put the energy and time into this application this evening. Than to continue this to yet another date. So I'm sorry that the link happened that way. I'm not sure what else we can do about that. But at this moment, I think that the most appropriate move forward is to continue with the application. I think there were so many points heard tonight and several of them were repeated. So I'm hoping that everything was covered in that public comment. And I appreciate the concern.
Thanks. That sounds a lot like you're catering more towards the applicant than the people that you represent.
Kevin, we had county commissioners that could not also join.
That's great. The residents of the community that voted for the county commissioners and the people who put the planning commission in place are the ones that should really, you know, have to
If we
say
did not
and
want
make sure that
people to
everybody's
join,
aware.
would not the county commissioners not also be able to join?
Yeah. Elsa, go ahead.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to follow up about what Attorney Matt Hobbs said. And has just been noticed, I had a hard time getting on as well, but I reached out and found somebody to help me get on. And I always have my phone available. Nobody texted or called me. These are public hearings, and I'm happy to be available to help people with technology problems. So my phone number, email, are all very available publicly, and people can reach out anytime if they're having a technical difficulty. I totally hear that it's a bummer, and you know, we should just reach out to each other to help make sure we're getting access to the public process. So people can reach out anytime.
Thank you, Elsa. Okay. There was a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so at this point, you're all free to still sit here and listen to us deliberate. We just cannot communicate or take any additional comment. But you're welcome to sit and listen to us deliberate and make a motion, and staff have something.
One item for our county commissioners, we do have another public hearing this evening. I promise to keep it very short and sweet, but we do have one more, so we'll just need the county commissioners.
Yeah, we'll have to get the
remember.
county commissioners back on. We'll have to text you here in a little bit.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll just give them a quick minute to exit the meeting, and then we can start the deliberations. Okay. I think they are all three off. Thank you. Who wants to start?
Start. I think the
Okay,
applicants.
sorry, just Anne had one more
I
thing.
did not mean to interrupt you. But earlier, you had asked a question about a local finding, and I just want to at least provide that, you know, those findings need to be met locally and not really they're not under the jurisdiction of what CDOT might find out about their findings might be about an access permit. So I just wanted just a point of clarity that our land development codes are specific to local findings.
Not remembering what it was that I asked.
You would ask a question about a finding whether there was any vehicular or pedestrian safety that hadn't been addressed, and yet the applicant answered that it was based on the CDOT's findings.
Oh, right, okay.
And so I just wanted to highlight that those should be based on local findings.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, a lot of studies, but I don't think that the study's conclusions, and even though they meet code and state requirements, aren't really addressing a couple of the key issues that the community is concerned about, and hundreds of the community, and I'm concerned about. Also, I drive County Road 10 every week, and I know that intersection pretty well, and I don't wanna throw around phrases flippantly, but I think that is a critical aspect of this. And if it can't be addressed in a way that CDOT's happy, or I should say happy, that doesn't include their preferred solution, I don't think it's an adequate solution.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go second. I wrote down a handful of things. I mean, I think on one hand, there's been some things, like I like the fact, and hopefully regardless of this turnout, the backup alarms change, and having that right-hand return lane, or the right-hand turn lane for southbound, man, that needs it so bad, whether this application goes forward or not. Those are some of the things that I see there, but I have a hard time with 6 a.m. I have a hard time with starting out with 55, but could go up to, we don't know. And to, some of the other points, who's out there counting that per the high traffic volume hour, per the, who's doing that math out there? I have a hard time because I do believe that having this material for our community is a really huge benefit. I think that if, ACA does move forward with their, their potential planned, drop-in size and or, running out of material over there, that just increases our building costs even more than they already are. And so I can sympathize with that and appreciate that could offer some huge benefit for our community, to have that material local, road and bridge, all of those things. I have a really hard time reconciling the detriments to the benefits, of this particular location. I understand that work is already being done, so why not just add this extra? There is something there, but in my opinion, a gravel pit needs to be located somewhere else within the county, and that's just it's a really tough location there. I can appreciate that County Road 10 has become much busier than it ever has, over the last several years, and I think that is a concern, even just that dirt road portion of it. So, yeah, I mean, I think the 8 to 5 PM thing is I just can't even imagine 6 AM to 7 PM, noises, yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of things there. I don't know that the road maintenance agreement, amount, I think $150,000 sounds big, but I mean, I don't know how much it costs per mile to repair or repave the road, but it's more than that. So, yeah, those are just my spewing thoughts out loud.
So my thoughts were from day one was public safety. I don't think CDOT has addressed that adequately. I understand the rules and regulations, but that's a disaster waiting to happen. And I can't consciously vote yes for something that's in my mind I know is gonna happen. There's gonna be a death, there's gonna be a family killed. Our traffic is not locals per se in the summertime, it is tourists. who really have no understanding of this area, what's going on. And I can't consciously vote for it just from a safety standpoint on Highway 24 and 10.
I'll close this out. Love your presentation, thank you. But respectfully echoing all these things that have been said, I cannot in good faith move forward with something like this. Unfortunately, where you guys have found gold is in a location that raises more concerns and red flags than benefits. And while I respect the fact that you guys are thinking about the community in the sense of having the gravel stay local, I can't help but think in the back of my mind that it is about that gold there. And when we think about our comprehensive plan, there are things that are not being abided by in that comprehensive plan that go beyond just noise. Safety, yes, but when we think about what the community ultimately looks like, preserving the natural resources, the wildlife impact that was mentioned, that is a very real thing. And I think the final nail in the coffin for me is just hiring locally. You know, Climax, it's not near any residential homes. There's no sound problems. They have everything figured out from a safety standpoint. And here's the real kicker, they employ approximately 400 people locally, 800 people across the state. We have a gravel pit. Would it be unfortunate if ADA had a minor inconvenience? Absolutely. But I think it was Matt or Andy, I don't know which one it was. There are days when he's there, nobody's around. It's not like we're overflowing with demand either. And I hike that area right by Mount Elbert Forebay, and I can empathize with what's being said about the dust. That dust is real and we're right there and it's being kicked up, and I can only imagine what it will be like, you know? And the thing that was not mentioned, finally, is any of these profits, you know, these are real people. I look at them and they got a lot more wrinkles on my face. They've worked hard for everything that they have. They've been here a very long time. And to take a hit financially, that does not help our community at all. It would be different if the pit was there first and then people decided to build homes.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
No, and that is a real problem. I mean, we're experiencing that, for sure. With real estate sales in that area, it's already becoming a concern, with the current operations in place, so.
Ready?
I'm ready.
For a motion? Yeah.
I think we all know.
I move that the planning commission recommend denial to the Board of County Commissioners of file 2403 conditional use permit application for the processing of aggregate material produced as a byproduct of Titan Gold's placer mining operations and the export of construction materials. The location is 8.5 miles south-southeast of Leadville, north 1/2 of section 3, 4, and 5, township 11 south, range 80 west, and the south half of section 32, 33, and 34, township 10 south, and range 80 west of the 6th principal meridian. The Planning Commission further finds that the approval criteria pursuant to Lake County Land Development Code, section 3.6.1.f have not been met as evidenced in that staff report dated April 28th, 2025 for file number 24-03. 1, that the proposed conditional use is not consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies contained in the Lake County Comprehensive Plan. 2, that the proposed conditional use does not conform to the requirements and provisions of this code. 3, that adequate public safety, transportation, and utility facilities will not be available to serve the subject project while maintaining sufficient levels of service for existing development. 4, that the proposed conditional use is likely to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of county residents or to cause hardship for neighboring persons. 5, that the proposed conditional use is not consistent with and in harmony with neighboring land uses and future intended land uses in the area. 6, that the proposed conditional use will result in overly intensive use of the land relative to the surrounding area land. 7, that the proposed conditional use will result in traffic congestion or hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. Number 8, that the proposed conditional use will unnecessarily scar the land on which such use would be located. 9, that the proposed site of the conditional use is not and will not be free from natural or man-made hazards, or that such hazards can and will be adequately mitigated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes.
I don't know how material this is, but it says April 28th staff report. But it didn't say November 10th staff report,
Okay,
so just
just
adding that.
maybe amend that.
Okay, November 10th, 2025 staff report. And I'm thinking that a couple of these can be stricken from the motion, but
So you are amending your motion to include the staff report dated November 10th.
yes, so both staff reports.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you seconded?
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call, Ryan Hill?
Here.
Steve Stevens?
Here.
Sorry, Dave George?
Here.
Heather
Are you
Lyman?
actually taking a
Just-
vote?
Denied.
Just doing we're trying to do a vote
Oh, so
on the motion.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, roll call of vote, please. Ryan Hill. I mean, I thought, here, like that kind of works. So aye.
Denied.
Oh, deny, yeah. Well, you're eyeing his motion.
Yes.
Steve Stevens.
denied.
Yep, and David Rich.
Aye.
And Heather Lindai. Okay, so this is just our recommendation. It goes to the county commissioners where they will make their decision on whether they agree or disagree with our recommendation. This will move us into file 20.
Heather, just one point, you might wanna clarify for the record, cause it's only transcribed and the I deny thing is a little,
Okay.
when you read it, it'll be
Yeah.
really confusing.
So the motion is on the table that you approve his motion. You're voting yes or no to his motion.
I
So-
approve his motion to deny.
Yes. Ryan Hill,
I approve his motion to deny as well.
okay,
I approve.
and I approve.
Minute break?
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. I need to be silent. Okay. Okay, welcome back. We will go ahead and open up file 25-34. I guess I need to do. This is the Land Development Code Amendment for Proposition 123. The Lake County Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners will now conduct a joint public hearing. The statement I'm reading shall be incorporated into and made part of the record on these proceedings. The Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners have jurisdiction to conduct a joint public hearing on a Land Development Code amendment under Section 3.8 of the Lake County Land Development Code. The purpose of this hearing is to consider whether the proposed amendment should be approved. In considering the matter, the Commission will address the approval criteria set forth in Section 3.8.9 of the Lake County Land Development Code. The procedure to be followed in this hearing will be the county staff will make initial presentation. After that, any persons either supporting or opposing the application may present evidence. And 3, any supporting or opposing witnesses may be questioned by the commission or the board. Once questioning is concluded, no further questioning is permitted unless granted by the chair. The parties and witnesses are asked not to submit redundant, irrelevant, or cumulative evidence. If someone has already made the point that you wish to say, please simply say so. The chair will also require that all comments be made to the planning commission and the board and that there be no dialogue between the applicant and members of the audience. At the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of this hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and the commission will discuss and weigh the evidence. Then there will be a motion to close the discussion phase of the joint public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will then leave the meeting and the chair of the planning commission will entertain a motion on the application. The motion may take the form of one of the following recommendations. Number 1, approve the application with no conditions. 2, approve the application with recommended conditions. 3, approve the application with newly identified conditions, or 4, deny the application. The planning director shall make record of any substantial discussion on the motion and include that in the record with the recommendation of the commission. The commission's recommendation will be in the form of a statement of motion. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the commission or to the form or substance of these proceedings? Hearing none, county staff may make its presentation.
Thank you so much. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Proposition 123. It was approved by the Colorado voters in the general election in 2022. And what it did is it created affordable housing programs, created grants and loans available to governments and nonprofits for programs like homeownership, land banking, planning, homelessness programs, just a variety of different housing projects. It took up to 0.1% of the state's existing state income tax, roughly $300 million to fund these programs. In order to participate, you had to vote to be eligible for these funds. You had to make a commitment, and that commitment requirement was to increase your existing housing stock by 3%, with either new affordable housing units or renovation to the creation of existing houses into what would be defined as affordable housing units. Leadville and Lake County together did an IGA to make that commitment. The total amount of our commitment to realize that 3% annually is 46 units that we have to bring on board by the end of next year. And that's shared equally between the two jurisdictions. So 23 apiece, and you'll recall that the 10-2 project, unto itself, just that project has 24 units of affordable housing that meet these requirements. Under this statute, we are also required to have a fast track approval process. And so we have to introduce that into the Lake County Development Code and into concurrently as being introduced into the municipal code in the city of Leadville. And there is an incentive for us to adopt this code by the end of the year, which will result in a $50,000 additional funding that we'll receive if we are doing that. So that is kind of why we're bringing this to you now and wanting to further the goals associated with our housing needs assessment and the 10-2 projects, the Laura parcel, just all of the different housing projects that are currently going on in the county. Yes, you have a question?
The $50,000 is if the fast track approval process is done and in place. That's in addition to anything else that's being received?
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, it's just a $50,000 incentive to get your fast track done by the end of the year. We're required to do it anyway, because we signed up for Prop 123 funding. And locally, what that means so far to us is that we realized $980,000 for the housing at 10-2. So we're already realizing the benefit of that in our capital stack for affordable housing. But the second part of meeting our obligation was to fast track certain types of land development applications. So this code amendment is looking to define what a affordable housing unit means. And so we have to tie that to what the statute defines that as, and that's 100%. Individuals will come in and buy these units who earn up to 100% of the area median income or less, and that they're spending 30% of their gross income on their inclusive amount that they're spending on housing. So that's their principal, interest, homeowners, and utilities and homeowners associations, things like that, and taxes. So if we are, that defines, this hasn't previously been defined in the land development code or the municipal code. So that would be part of what we introduce into the code. And this will define what an affordable housing unit is under the statute for Prop 123 funding. And there's a little bit of a nuance here. So typically, Prop 123 is available for 60% AMI for rental units. However, Jackie applied for and we were approved for a petition to raise that AMI because we fall more in that rural resort type of economy. And so we were able to raise this to 100% of area median income or less, just based on the cost of living in our area. So that was really beneficial, but you will see there's a caveat in here that it is subject to whatever our status is on our petition AMI with the state, because we have to redo that annually. But there is a possibility that could go back down to 60%.
Another question, either for anybody, under what circumstances would it necessitate going from 100 down to 60?
If our application to the state, our petition to raise it would not be approved. It has been approved, but we have to reapply on an annual basis.
Got it.
And so the 23 units per jurisdiction have to be built by the end of 2026?
That's correct.
And the ones that you mentioned for the 10-2 are in the city?
That's correct.
So how is what happens if the county can't do that?
So I think that we're not getting just credit for those units, but we also get credit for anything that is renovated into our existing housing stack. So like all of the units that the county bought on Elm Street, all of those multi-units, when we've done major upgrades to those, they can be counted as part of our commitment under there. So there's a lot of different projects that we're looking at.
But we feel like it's fine, and then what happens if not?
That's a really good question. I think that if we don't meet that commitment, then we could be subject to having to look at the funds that have already been given to us,
So there's no, if we don't meet the commitment, then we just can't get the funding for the next cycle, we have to sit out a cycle.
Got it.
And we can reapply in 3 years, so the funding cycle is 3 years. So we have applied for and opted in for this cycle, which ends at the end of next year. The AMI petition, raising our AMI coincides with that, and then there's no downside to it.
Got it.
And so assuming that is met for 2026, the application again will be for 27, 8, and 9, right? Okay.
Right, there'll be 3-year cycles, so it's 3% over 3.
Is that also applicable for the fast track application where if this window is missed, you're out for the whole cycle?
What we miss is the $50,000 for getting it done this year. So if we don't get it approved, this year, then there's still some time next year perhaps. But really this is our window to get that free money.
Gotcha, for this calendar year, okay.
And it's a one-time thing, cause you're changing the code.
Got it. Okay, so one approval and then it's set.
So expedited review, and what this means is, so first we've defined what affordable housing projects meet. But in order to be able to get an expedited review through community planning and development, the projects have to come in with 50% or more of the total units qualifying under this 100% AMI for either homeownership or for rental. And then there's also the ability for, under the statute, for the applicant or the county to need some additional time. The applicant can ask to waive the 90-day review if they need additional time. We as the county, if we find out that an application as we're going through review, some substantial information comes forward and additional review time is needed, we can ask for that information and then we can extend it up to 30 days. But an applicant can ask for a 90-day extension or they can actually waive it too, so either thing. So these are the only types of land use applications that this will apply to. It doesn't apply to subdivision or planned unit development. Basically because our statutory obligations under the review process and the public hearing process with those types of applications, we couldn't possibly meet this expedited review. So the only permits that this applies to are conditional use permits, site plan reviews, building permits, and variances. So again, they have to come in, the project as a whole has to have 50% affordability. It has to meet all of those other criteria, it has to meet the AMIs. And if that's true, then we commit to processing it within those timeframes. So it's not going to hit, conditional use permits are obviously a board of county commissioners decision. Site plans are your decision on site plans. Building permits are internal, and then variances are the Board of Adjustment. So those are our deciding bodies on each of the different processes. But again, this does not apply to PUDs, subdivision, rezonings, those kind of decisions and processes. So it's pretty minimal. Your conditions of approval, of course, for any code amendment is that you're consistent with your comp plan and any other adopted or acknowledged plans. So particularly this code amendment is aligns with goal 2.14 and strategy E and F of the existing comp plan, which is goal 2.14 is promote the development of diversity of housing types, providing for residents in different economic and housing needs, and giving Leadville and Lake County employees the opportunity to live affordably close to where they work. And strategy E, work with regional, state, and federal housing entities and developers to expand the inventory of affordable rental housing in and near Leadville. And then strategy G is evaluate affordable housing needs based on the HUD affordability standard. Housing expenses, including rents, mortgage, and other utilities, should not cost more than 30% of household income. So it directly aligns with comp plan, it aligns with the housing needs assessment, which I also pulled out in the staff report and just talked about what those final findings were with the amount of housing that's needed in our community, which is develop at least 160 rental units with AMIs ranging from 30 to 80% and 80% to 120%. The goal needs to be paired with an affordable home ownership program for local renters, which would free up a share of existing rental units to contribute to housing needs, and then develop at least 260 new home ownership units affordable to 60 to 140% AMI households. So those were all findings in the housing needs assessment.
Sorry, what
And
was the
then-
math on that really quick, Ann?
Sure.
It was, you said 160 rental units, and then what was the other one?
260
For single family?
for new home ownership, yeah.
Got it, okay.
Yeah. So those are our two thresholds that our housing needs assessment really elevated for us in their finding. So this particular code amendment aligns with that goal. And also the purpose that is just within chapter 1 of the land development code, which really talks about encouraging implementation of the comp plan and the adopted land use and development policies that are consistent with the code, and maintain and manage growth in a way that improves the county's quality of life, and maintain and promote stability within the county's neighborhoods and agricultural areas, and promote predictability, consistency, and efficiency in the process for residents, neighbors, businesses, agricultural and development opportunities. So really it aligns with all three of those particular policies and plans. And then basically this is kind of at the heart of what all of these housing amendments are meant to do. It's really here because of changing social values, new planning concepts, or other social and economic conditions. It speaks directly to what the basis of this amendment does. And it does overall promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. So what this proposal does is just creates a fast track ability to take in affordable housing projects that meet those thresholds. I can't currently tell you that I know of any that we have, nor any projects. Probably the only one that came close, but it was a PUD, was the Silver King redevelopment application. It wouldn't have been eligible for this. Keeping that in mind, when we have a project that comes in that has deep affordability in it, that we can all generally see would be an advantage to our community, we're absolutely gonna prioritize that application and try to get it through the process as quickly as possible. But this is a statutory obligation, so we wanna meet that in part to receive that $50,000, also to just be in compliance with Prop 123 and the opportunities that it currently has provided to our community and may provide in the future. So there's a lot of incentives behind it, yes,
What does the 50 grand go to?
housing.
Yeah,
Oh, it's just part of that bucket, okay. I didn't know if that was being allocated for something specifically in conjunction.
I will say that actually, that's what we believe it will, that's how the money I believe will come to us from DOLA. So I think there will be strings attached to it, that it will be already earmarked for that.
A quick question too is there a streamlined process you defined already?
You know, I would say that, not that's been within the code, I think our policy within our department or our typical operating procedure is to try to move things through as quickly as we can. When there's elements that we see a strong benefit to the public health and safety and welfare.
So that's adequate for the state to give you $50,000?
Yeah, it's almost,
Yeah.
it's honestly almost a model code. It
I
really is, I
think
mean, they
this-
define the housing unit for us. They designed, it's in statute, this 90 days, they give the exception for the adjusted timeframes. So, you know, it's already predetermined for us, we're
Yeah.
just implementing it to the code basically.
I think that answered my question, forgive me if I'm trying to field parts of the elephant and understand this, but to Steve's point, so the state has a fast track process already and all that's being done is we are saying we are going to implement that internally, got it, okay.
That'd be a good way to
Properties
say it.
That's
that
exactly.
they define, that gives the parameters, how
Got
to
it,
define those
okay.
It's all
properties.
defined in statute.
Like you said, sounds like a win.
So it's a quick question, then one more question as a follow-up. So does that include presenting those things to this board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It does. So, two of those have significance for you, the site plans and the conditional use permits. We're already ahead of the game, and most jurisdictions have separate public hearings for their board or their planning commission. So this streamlined approach of having a single hearing, you know, we're way ahead of a lot of jurisdictions that are trying to figure out how to manage two public hearings in that time frame. And so we already have an advantage. I don't see where we'll have any problem. And I would say, you know, generally in those two processes, those are the timelines that we're already trying to meet, honestly.
We're always streamlined.
We're always streamlined.
That isn't a condition of approval, right? It's approval criteria, there are no conditions.
Oh, no, these are, yes, these are the approval criteria. I'm so sorry. These are the approval criteria. Code amendments.
Yeah, so I think if you read the motion,
Okay, so we don't have public comment, anything like that.
You can absolutely open to public comment. Let me go back. She opened to public comment. You've heard from staff. So now you can definitely, you should go ahead and open public comment and take, if anybody in the audience would like to speak on this,
I'm
yes.
taking notes.
Alright, so Heather had to leave, so I'm gonna take over her role for the remainder of the meeting. And open this file up to public comment. Are there any public comments on Zoom attendees? Okay, hearing none, seeing no hands raised. I think at this point we can call for a motion.
Go ahead and take a motion to close public.
Oh, okay, can I get a motion to close the public
motion.
comment?
Second.
Alright. All in favor, say aye, do you need a roll? No?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. Now we can entertain a motion.
One second.
Oh, Commissioner Tharp.
So y'all, hey, I just wanted to give an update about this from a commissioner's standpoint. We're having commissioners across the state are having conversations about this, the criteria, the 3% growth. And currently municipalities and counties cannot jointly consider all the work done towards meeting that 3% growth. You can't consider those two efforts together, but we are trying to change it legislatively in the next legislative session to be able to have counties and municipalities combine their efforts to try to meet that 3% growth rate. So just wanted to let you all know about that.
Also, I have a follow-up question to that then.
Yeah.
Does that mean we can double dip and get more funds since we can't, have city and county ultimately count towards that 3%?
So the city and the county both can apply for this.
Oh,
So the city
okay.
has already,
So we can double dip? Wow.
so it's $100,000 into the community.
Yeah, so the city will be eligible for this opportunity as well. And they are concurrently, they've already had their first reading on their proposed code. And so they are looking to adopt before the end of the year also.
So what's nice about being able to combine efforts is that it's 3% is a lot to accomplish for a small city like Leadville and a small county like Lake. So yes, we can double dip. We'll still be able to double dip, but we won't have the same time pressures because all of our efforts can be considered jointly in the future if we get the legislation passed at the state level.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, Elsa and Jackie too, there's a lot of discussion around the 30% cost burden as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring that up in every single meeting, and I think that especially for mountain towns and rural towns, that 30% it's just not the same barrier for urban areas. So one of the ways in which we can really push anything through the legislature when it comes to Prop 123 is issues that affect everyone who's using Prop 123. And so the 3% calculation is where we're finding a lot of nexus with different types of counties. But I am bringing up the 30%, and our mountain communities are hearing that and championing it as well. But I just don't know if we're going to be able to get that changed this year. I don't have a sense of the legislators yet.
Awesome, thank you so much, Elsa, for that update. That was really helpful. So yes, this could, potentially there's going to be movement around this, but this checks the box, and we meet the deadline, and we can continue working through and the benefit that we've already received $980,000. This funding is pretty exciting.
Okay, that's it do we need to close the discussion phase, or we just go ahead and move? Okay.
No. So I make a motion, I move the planning commission recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for file number 25-34, an amendment to the Lake County Land Development Code, adding expedited affordable housing review to sections 3.1.14 processing cycles, code adding expedited affordable housing review to sections 3.1.14 processing cycles, 3.3.3 building permits, application and processing requirements, 3.6E conditional use permits, procedures for review and action, 3.15.3 site plan review and action, 3.21.4 zoning variances review and action, and adding affordable housing unit to chapter 9 definitions, and further find A, the proposed amendment shall be in substantial compliance with the express purposes of intents, goals, and policies of the Lake County Comprehensive Plan, and any ancillary county acknowledged or adopted documents pertaining to natural resource protection, affordable housing, infrastructure management, or any area-specific community plans and of this code, and B, the proposed amendment is necessary because of changing social values, new planning concepts, or other social or economic conditions, and C, the proposed amendment will promote public health safety, and general welfare. Do I have a second?
Give a second.
I second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. So can we adjourn the meeting? Okay,
Let's adjourn.
I don't see the time, but
7:14.
7:14.
A motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.